In Naruto, the bridge is the narrative vehicle for the concept of Ninshu and chakra, specifically the transformation it has on the self. How a specific moment of connection in Ninshu, of seeing someone's heart and having your own heart seen in turn, can allow you to face your true self outside of it all, outside of lack, outside of survival. How one simple act can allow you to step into your integrity. The scenes in which a bridge was shown or referenced either conveyed the establishment or existence of a connection through Ninshu, the obstruction that hatred inflicts on your own personal path, and or the death of the hatred that seeks to obstruct. So when we talk about bridges in Naruto, the first thing to mention really is Hagoromo, where he is the original bridge builder. He is the creator of Ninshu. And Hagoromo's journey starts when he decides to atone for his perceived sins for destroying the world in fighting Kaguya. So, as he decides to embark on this journey, he comes across a bridge that was destroyed. And he meets a thief named Futami who capitalizes on the helplessness of the people who need the bridge. The bridge getting fixed obviously would threaten the quote-unquote business of Futami. Futami gets angry at Hagoromo for attempting to fix the bridge, and he conveys to him that this is what he does for a living, to which Hagoromo of course replies that this situation's only good for you but harms everybody else. Hagoromo does not judge him. He does not speak to him with contempt. He does not demand more space than him. He does not shoo him away. He's just simply doing what he needs to do, and he lets Futami exist and feel what he is feeling without preaching, right? For quite a long time, Futami does not help Hagoromo. He ends up helping Hagoromo when it starts to rain, and he says we have to work fast or the logs you work so hard to gather will wash away. He does say, I'm not doing this to help. Once the bridge is done, I'm going to tear it down. Eventually, a kid comes up and throws a pebble at Futami and asks what he's doing. Futami says he's building the bridge. The kid replies, "You're just a thief. Doing that won't make all the bad stuff go away, Which, is true, but that's the thing with Ninshu, is that everybody deserves a chance as long as they live to try to become the best version of themselves. People gather to watch Futami and Hagoromo build this bridge, and when they touch the logs, he yells at, Futami yells at them, because, he thinks they're trying to hurt it, they're trying to, obstruct the path, and, they say, well, we're helping out, yeah, someone says, yeah, after all, we're going to be using the bridge too, and then a kid comes to help up, and the same kid, and Futami tells him to be careful, and he grabs a smaller one to give to him. And I really love this scene because it signifies that no matter how young you are, you can contribute to the path of Ninshu and on your own personal path, and you should be encouraged to do so with ways that work for you, as small as you are. Eventually the bridge is finished, and Hagoromo cheekily says, "A bridge worth the effort to destroy." To which Futami replies, "Are you kidding me? After all the work we put into it, there's no way I would destroy it." Hagoromo ends up embarking on, the next place. He's not going to stop at the bridge. He's specifically trying to atone for the sins, the destruction that him and Homura created on the world. So he can't just stay in one place. So Futami wants to go with him. At a campfire later, Hagoromo says, when you do a good deed, people are grateful, and that creates a nice feeling inside you. Then because it feels good, you want to do even more good deeds. That repetition is a cycle of goodness. and then Hagoromo explains who he is. He explains that he's atoning for his sins, that the destruction for all those years was caused by him. And Futami says, like, if he's that strong to wreak all that havoc, he could have fixed the bridge with that power. To which Hagoromo replies, I decided I would never use excessive power like that again, or else I wouldn't be able to understand how people feel. After that, he gives him chakra. He says, it's a power that connects people to each other, or at least that's the kind of power I want it to be. And then Futami says, you pass something like that on to me? And Hagoromo says it's a power that he cannot pass on to just anybody, but over time they became close, and Futami learned what it means to have a good heart. And I really love this because this is the concept of Ninshu, really in a nutshell, obviously, where, you like I said, you work with people and, you see their heart and you have your own heart see in turn. Futami begs Hagoromo to let him be his apprentice. He says, until now I lived a meaningless life. Everything I've done has been worthless. But you're different. You're someone who's able to truly do great things. So if I stay with you and learn from you, then maybe I can bring some worth to my insignificant life. And I think this is really important because this is a trap I have, of course, fallen into a lot, where I'm like, oh, somebody like me, I'm insignificant or something like that. But it's like, no matter who you are, you have worth regardless, and you can always choose to be a good person. You can always choose to do something good that you want to leave in the world, regardless of what it is. Hagoromo, of course, replies, are you saying you want to help other people now? And Futami says, after we finished the bridge and I saw all those smiling, happy people, I've never felt prouder. And I will never forget the looks on their faces. That's the bond you spoke of. I mean, isn't that right? And then Hagoromo, as he's narrating this to the reanimated Kage in the war, he says Futami taught him something important. He's not on this journey specifically only to atone for his sins, but he could help people create connections through chakra, through Ninshu. As Hagoromo and Futami go to continue this journey, they come across another bridge, and the bridge thief there recognizes Futami, and he's like, you're trying to steal my turf kind of vibe. And Futami says, listen up, from here on out you're going to become a good person. You got that? Which got a good fucking chuckle out of me, because because this is not a path that you can force on anybody, of course, but Futami, as somebody who is in this other bridge thief's position, he truly understood what, he would feel being a part of this bridge, because of course this bridge thief would not be able to stop the process, just like Futami was not able to. Quite a bit of time passed before Futami even joined in. He pretty much just watched Hagoromo, do his thing, and got impatient, and he's like, I'll join just to, make you leave faster, and then I'll destroy the bridge. And then when he saw those fruits, right, the fruits of his labor, the effort that everybody put in, and just the connection of creating that bridge, of course he then decided that, oh, this is giving me a bigger sense of purpose and self-satisfaction, like I said earlier, with a moment of connection of Ninshu, allowing you to see someone's heart and having your own heart seen in turn, outside of lack, outside of survival. Futami and all the other bridge thieves, of course, were living in survival. You don't steal to live if you're not in survival, if you're not in lack. That's just kind of the point. This bridge thief, of course, did end up joining Hagoromo and Futami as a fellow disciple, and had chakra passed on to him. Many people did. In the monologue in which he is explaining these flashbacks to the previous Hokage that are reanimated, he says, as I trained with my apprentices, I continued to ponder many questions. What is life? What is love? What is power? We believed that someday the bond between people that was created by chakra would lead to world peace. We continued our travels for a very long time. We restored places that had been nearly destroyed, often for no reason. He goes on to explain that they discovered locations in those regions that would house the tailed beasts. Of course, we all know them, you know, the Waterfall Village, the Land of Fire, right? All of that. Many of his pupils remained in those regions where the tailed beasts would be released at the end of his lifespan. So that created those safe spaces for the people who were disciples and then eventually teachers of Ninshu. Hagoromo explains that he goes back to his original village and he makes it the quote-unquote headquarters of Ninshu. He had Indra and Ashura, of course. He says Indra was especially caring and Ashura chased after Indra. Now, the important thing about Indra is that he innovated Ninshu to have practical application, which is, of course, ninjutsu. And I really love the detail where the first real use of ninjutsu that he had, was fire, where, you know, the will of fire, the land of fire, you know, and then we see Madara and we see Sasuke, and, you know, we know that they are, you know, the Uchiha love harder than anybody else. And with Hagoromo saying Indra was especially caring, this of course reflects in that, where it's like Indra essentially created the will of fire, even if the concept of ninjutsu can be abused. Indra did not create it with the intent for that. He even vents to Hagoromo later on that he does not like how the training of Ninshu becomes so much like, how can we make this useful? He misses how spiritual it was, to which Hagoromo, of course, replies, if chakra is to become a weapon, then we must simply train the soul even harder to control the chakra. Which is true, of course, with anything. Ashura and Indra spar, and when the sparring is over, Ashura gets excited. He says, quote, when he hears a bell toll or something like that, he says, that means training's over. I'm going to go play with Taizo and the others. I really love this because it indicates that while others see him as childish and unfocused, he still focuses and values his inner child. This is reflected in Naruto especially, but, you know, also Hashirama. Futami says it's good that Indra is stronger than Ashura because when naming the eldest son as a successor, that can sometimes sow seeds of discontent, of course. But the interesting thing here is that, at least in the English dub, nobody points out that, like, nobody talks about a successor before Futami mentions it. I'm not sure if Hagoromo even thought that far ahead, which is really interesting because, of course, the true answer to Ninshu is that there's not supposed to be a successor. There's not supposed to be a leader. Everybody is supposed to maintain that equal connection through Ninshu. That's the point. Black Zetsu comes to Indra and, you know, he goads him on. He's like, you know, you can awaken your true power, but to do that you have to lose love. Let's test it out, shall we? You know? And then, of course, comes the moment with Ashura, Taizo, and the others facing danger. And then, of course, the, you know, scene where, you know, did the dog die.com, right? And Rip Shido. So, in facing this rampaging boar, Ashura is not able to do anything. And, you know, the other kids are like, well, you know, you have Ninshu, use it, type of thing. Not that cruel, of course, but Ashura freezes up. Like, he doesn't know what to do. And then Indra comes, Shido dies, did the dog die.com. And Indra awakens his Sharingan through the death of Shiro. So, this is, of course, an incredible weight to bear for somebody like Indra, really anybody in general, where Indra really is just so naturally talented. He's so naturally powerful. When somebody is naturally talented and naturally powerful, they have at least a self-perceived sense of responsibility where they have to take care of everybody, and this can lead to them being jaded and angry that people cannot do what they can do. Side note, but I started watching Witch Hat Atelier, and I don't know how to pronounce her name in English, Agate, but I think in Japanese they say like Agoto or something like that, but she says something along the lines of, I can't stand people, or I hate people who can't do what I can do. It really is such a hard burden to carry, and it's especially worse for Indra because he has Black Zetsu, which nobody knows the existence of, like not until Madara, literally, goading him on. So not only does he have this self-perceived sense of responsibility through through his power, but he also knows of the evil spirit that is Black Zetsu, who targeted Ashura, and he feels that he cannot speak about it. Especially because the things that Black Zetsu says kind of resonate with him to some extent. Like, he doesn't inherently deny it, but that's also the problem, where it's like you can not inherently deny it, but you can also still know that it's wrong, and that's where he sits. He never accepts Black Zetsu, but he also never tells anybody. He carries this weight alone, which is the point of, it's the antithesis of Ninshu, right? You can't carry this weight alone. Nobody can. This is the entire point with Naruto chasing after Sasuke. Taizo asks Ashura to cut down some trees, which Ashura of course does. He says Taizo says it's to clear a path, but really, that was maybe partially, of course, but it was really so he could sell the lumber for medicine. And, Indra arrests Taizo. And, he's like, you can't take anything from this village and sell it for a profit because it's for everybody. And Taizo says, Ashura's like, why didn't you tell me your mom's sick? I would heal her. He can do medical ninjutsu, of course. So Taizo says his mom does not fuck with Ninshu. She does not fuck with it. She says, specifically, quote unquote, she says that this world doesn't need it. Ashura breaks Taizo out of jail and then confronts Indra, which I really love this because Taizo, as he leaves, he says, I owe you one. And something that Indra says to Ashura as he goes to leave, he says, Ashura, why do we have a system of laws in place? What's the purpose of the power Ninshu provides us? And I really love this question because it really shows that Indra completely lost the plot in the power. Because Ninshu is not supposed to be governable. It's not supposed to have laws. The purpose of the power that Ninshu provides is not power. It's connection. But, of course, through the evolution of it, they did not call it ninjutsu yet. But through ninjutsu, there is power, which, of course, power should be regulated to some extent, but I also don't believe it should be controlled. And, to bring back the concept of how I'm watching Witch Hat Atelier, that is just a part of not the world building, but the world itself that I don't like, which is they have all these roles on what it is to be a witch. And a part of that includes not being able to heal, which I don't like because I always love, like, in any magic system, like Naruto, for instance, healing abilities, right? When Ashura is in front of Shido's grave, Hagoromo tells Ashura that he possesses a truly gentle heart, with the complete opposite of Indra, to which Ashura replies, in quote, well, Elder Brother's a genius. He can do anything by himself, and he has the power to do so. All those years ago, when he and Shido saved me, Elder Brother was very kind, and I still maintain faith that Elder Brother's heart hasn't changed since then. I'll train harder and do my best to become someone that Elder Brother can rely on. I really love this because it's so true, but it's also missing an important aspect, to which Hagoromo, after he sends Ashura and Indra out on their respective quests for the title of the successorship, Hagoromo says to Gama, for Ninshu to take the true and proper path, both power and love will be necessary, which is so true. And this is really Naruto and Sasuke's, path. Obviously, Indra and Ashura, Hashirama and Madara, but through the series of Naruto, we truly watch Naruto go from very weak but also always possessing that love to very strong. And then we, of course, at the final valley fight, we see Sasuke really accept that love, and then after the war, he goes on to his own journey to embody that love and spread it. Taizo comes up to Ashura to accompany him on this journey, and I really love this scene because Ashura says, "I thought your mom hated Ninshu," and then Taizo responds, "Oh, come on, those are two separate things. A man's obligation comes before hating Ninshu." And I really love that because that is Ninshu. She's specifically referencing ninjutsu, which of course has not gotten that name yet. His obligation, like I said, after Ashura bailed him out of prison, he said, "I owe you one, Ashura," and this is kind of him, his personal obligation, his personal duty to, that he feels he has to, uphold for his best friend. Like, let's keep it a bug. Like, Taizo was there, Taizo is his childhood friend, beyond everything. But yes, the very thing that Taizo's mom explained is Ninshu. Like, he is upholding this connection and this bond with Ashura. He expects this to take several years, which it does. I think it takes 1 or 2 years, and then they come back to the village. So Taizo really has his dedication. He's truly a real one, right? Indra comes back very soon, and he says, I dealt with it, right? And Ashura, like I said, takes 1 to 2 years to come back. And, after literally being stoned by the villagers, he still wants to help them. And he decides he's going to dig for water, even though they said you could dig for years and really not hit shit, right? So he decides to do it with Ninshu. And Kana, who I believe ends up becoming his wife, she's a very important key player to this arc in this village. She says it's impossible. The villagers have tried digging for water for years, but they never found any. Taizo says, "Yeah, I already told him that, but once he gets an idea in his head, he won't listen." Girl, just like any other fucking reincarnation of Ashura ever. So then Ashura says, "It doesn't matter if it's possible or not because I've decided to do it. Even if it takes years, I'll make it happen." And I really love this because this is quite literally something that Naruto says in the solidification of his ninja way. I believe he said something maybe even exact to that. The villagers eventually come up to Ashura and they say, "We came to help. It's for our village, so we want to do our part. And if you can, do you think you can teach us Ninshu too?" I really love this, of course, because it calls back to the original bridge that Futami and Hagoromo built. And Ashura does teach them Ninshu. Several people get healing, medical ninjutsu, right? Several people get just, all these different personal elements, because that's kind of how chakra works, right? You have your own chakra nature, your own thing that you're good at. Similar also to the bridge, everybody rejoices when they hit water. Everybody. And this gives them the actual access to the water supply and the sustenance that they need, so they can safely destroy the divine tree without affecting the food and water supply of the village. And then the people who learn the medical Ninshu help Ashura to heal all those who are afflicted with the illness caused by the tree, which causes, of course, Kana's mom to be healthy again. When Ashura comes back, they end up announcing the successor, which, of course, is Ashura. Indra, you know, it really is such a shame because he's very desperate, you know, not for the successorship specifically, but for his father's love. He's like, what did I do wrong? You know, and of course I think most people can relate to that, where, you know, we've felt that we at a young age disappointed an authority figure or something like that, a mother, father, teacher, etc. What am I doing different? What am I doing wrong, essentially, instead of what can I do for my own personal path, my own personal sense of self? You know, it gets, you know, because of society, it gets muddled. Like, how can I please you? How can I change to please you? Instead of, how can I embody love in a way that feels right for me, in a way that I can carry it in the world, right? So Hagoromo explains, you know, because of the way that Indra solved the issue in the village ended up getting destroyed because people fought for water. and you know, people fought for, to claim it, because they had that lack mentality, that lack mindset. They did not have the ability to do these things themselves, and Indra, as somebody with power, did not offer to work with them in a way that mattered. Indra specifically says that he has power and that those villagers revered him as a god. But once Indra left, once that, you know, god left, they were just left with themselves, without that connection, without that establishment of Ninshu between them, to which, of course, you know, peace may last a little while, but then when that lack mentality really hits, when that survival mode hits, you seek to claim and own something that is a human right without working together. Indra eventually kills his two friends, aka two disciples, really, and he does this in order to attain the Mangekyo Sharingan. And this is really such a shame, because Black Zetsu manipulates Indra and his reincarnations / descendants into thinking that you have to kill in order to get the Mangekyo Sharingan. And this is, of course, reminiscent to how in the real world, in society, people think that in order to make it, in order to succeed, you have to step over everyone to stand on top, which is, of course, just not how it is. That's a lack mindset. That's, you know, from the place of survival and the place of fear. In this case, though, it's just not true physiologically. You know, we see Sarada Uchiha consistently evolve her Sharingan through love. The original, you know, awakening of the Sharingan is through her, you know, feeling this sense of anticipation as she's about to meet her father for the first time. And then her awakening of Mangekyo Sharingan is from her love in one way or another for Boruto. And, you know, several chapters leading up to that, she really just feels this sense of helplessness, like, why can't I help him? I want to do more to help him. Why does it always have to be Boruto? Why does he always have to go through this? You know, what can I do? And then she awakens it, and she asks her dad, ironically enough, for a once-in-a-lifetime request to help save and shelter Boruto, which I, of course, really love this, because it mirrors Sakura asking Naruto for a once-in-a-lifetime request to bring Sasuke back, which I really love that now that I think about it, because it signifies that Sakura was so important and such a pivotal role in the healing of Indra and Ashura's, you know, lifetime karmic loop, really. 100 healing jutsu, more ways than one. She healed hundreds of lifetimes. Hagoromo, at the celebratory feast, tells Ashura that Indra is different now because of his Sharingan. He says the power overwhelms everyone, which is true. This is also true for Madara and Sasuke. We have that, iconic scene with Karin truly sensing the hate in his heart. And she's like, oh, his chakra signature actually feels completely different from what I remember. However, of course, there is that sense of discrimination where, Hagoromo also had the Sharingan, and, then he gained the Rinnegan, and those eyes specifically are specifically noted and mentioned to make people who look in them feel a certain way, right? To feel that overwhelming presence, that overwhelming chakra, because the eyes themselves, as dojutsu, they carry chakra. Like it is weighty, it is heavy, right? I feel that with a lot more intervention, which of course Hagoromo points this out, with a lot more intervention, if Hagoromo were to know about Black Zetsu, all of these things, Indra could have, of course, been saved from going into that depth of hatred, because hatred is not the Uchiha birthright. It's not how Uchiha, Indra, the reincarnations, the descendants, it's not how they have to live. It was a lie peddled to them by Black Zetsu, aka the one who obstructs the path, like I mentioned earlier. The path of Ninshu, the path of purpose, the path of personal power, how you navigate the world. He says Indra stopped being able to understand how people feel, and it closed off his heart, and Ashura's different. Hagoromo says, quote, "A bond is something that can only be created by sharing hardships together. It overflows with love and compassion. As long as such bonds exist, Ninshu won't be used for evil. However, power without bonds will bring great calamity among the world." So Hagoromo is right here, of course. However, for the most part, where there is power, there is evil. Not everybody can be in touch with Ninshu, Ideally, that would be the case, but if most, if not all, people are linked through Ninshu, it won't stop bad things from happening. It won't inherently cure lack or survival mindset. We see this exemplified in Boruto, where a lot of rogue shinobi still exist. I mean, hell, there's a fucking nation of rogue shinobi, literally. And not only that, but there's bandits, there's thieves, the whole arc in Boruto with the quote-unquote honorable thieves, but the leader of that was not honorable at all, but he did use genjutsu and brainwashing techniques to convince people of this. And also, of course, he used his actions. And this is where we kind of get into the philosophical debate of, if people do good things, are they technically a good person or not? And of course, the answer is so very nuanced. You cannot definitively say yes or no. It is case by case. And good and bad people, that's also a descriptor that is, I feel, should not be said. If not, it shouldn't be said lightly, right? In that case, of course, stealing and then giving to the poor was a very good cover-up for this guy, because, just side tangent, he stole from the rich, he gave to the poor. This caused the very large amount of poor people and people in that lack and survival mindset to revere him, as sort of Robin Hood, which led to him being able to use his genjutsu to brainwash them, because they have to be susceptible to a certain extent to the brainwashing. I believe that's how this man's jutsu worked. So they already think highly of him. He applies his genjutsu. It just amplifies what he already laid the groundwork to do so. And then, he has this big national, crime where he steals the ninja tool that is the seventh Hokage, aka Naruto's arm. It's his prosthetic arm. And Naruto very quickly goes and tracks him down and stops a literal moving train. like a literal actual moving train. Like, love that. But anyway, I digress. Indra and Ashura then fight, and the villagers, link their hands to create a chakra hand that lends Ashura help, which is the literal actual application of Ninshu through ninjutsu, kind of. Hagoromo dies, and on his deathbed, he says, "I'm afraid I was not able to guide this world as well as I would have liked." I really like that quote because at the end of the war, when the reanimated Hashirama talks to Madara, he essentially says, it was never our responsibility to change the world, to heal the world. It's only our responsibility to lay the groundwork for those who come after to pick up where we left off, and it's our responsibility to trust that they will. Which, on Hagoromo's deathbed, he does not quite understand this level of thinking. Hagoromo tells Ashura that Indra came to find him the night prior. Indra said that he will reincarnate to fight against Ashura, Ninshu, and Hagoromo's ideals. And then on Hagoromo's deathbed, Ashura says that he will reincarnate alongside Indra to stop him. Of course, this led to the consistent reincarnation and the consistent wars really caused by the descendants and the Ashura and Indra who reincarnate. Hagoromo then says to Ashura, "I hereby entrust the future of this entire world to you and your descendants." And of course, Hagoromo acknowledges that that's the problem. He entrusted it all to one son when the point is balance. That's the point of Ninshu, love and power, right? And even earlier, he says Indra was a truly caring child, and Ashura followed after his older brother, always chased after him. This is, we see this in Naruto. But considering war and the political circumstances, Sasuke had his childhood cut very short. He was not able to kind of embody that caring energy for long. He had vengeance kind of instilled into him, actually literally instilled into him. Then Hagoromo, it ends the flashback, and he says to the Hokage, they should support, he wants them to support Naruto and Sasuke because he has implicit faith that those two will find the true solution to this fate of shinobi, which has persisted for all this time. Which is true, girl. Final Valley, if you know, you know. So the TLDR for this section is that in Hagoromo's journey to atone for his sins, he built a bridge, and he made so many connections in building that bridge. And, he tried to heal, and successfully did, the ravaged land. And he had disciples. He established Ninshu, which is the connection of people through chakra, aka love, really. He has kids. He deals with successorship issues that really shouldn't have existed. And he ultimately realizes that the true successorship is the balance between love and power. That is how you truly embody Ninshu, at least in a way that makes a difference. Like, you can, because power means something different. Like, obviously, like, Naruto in the Naruto universe is very powerful. Like, he could do fucking anything at the end of it, really. But the people that he helps that end up embodying Ninshu, even if they don't have that level of power, even if they're not shinobi, they still step into their own personal sense of power. We see this in, of course, the first major arc with the Land of Waves, right? The villagers had to step in their own personal sense of power, and personal as in a way that works for them. Not everybody can be Naruto, and that's the point. And then, just to wrap this section up, Black Zetsu was the one, at least in this arc, to attempt to obstruct Ninshu, and he, of course, did technically succeed for several centuries, several lifetimes, several reincarnations, several eras. The bulk, if not all of the problems that they faced in that era was because of Black Zetsu. even if he technically got very little screen time. I mean, he actually caused the issue with Shiro and Ashura to, get attacked by that wild boar and everything. And then he just went ghost for several years. It wasn't until, I think... I don't really remember. It was either after Taizo got busted out of prison, or somewhere in those teenage years, essentially, Black Zetsu comes back and talks to Indra. And Indra never implicitly accepted Black Zetsu. He never implicitly accepted his ideals or anything like that. But he was also never able to tell anybody about Black Zetsu. And he also... there had to be a sense of guilt there, because he did technically agree to some level with Black Zetsu. But that's the thing. You can agree with somebody who is evil, or, quote unquote, right? Or peddles very harmful, false narratives, right? That seek to obstruct the path. You can agree with those people, and then also not agree with them, and still stay true to your own personal power, your own personal path. And ultimately, he believed the lie that Black Zetsu peddled about having to, quote-unquote, lose love to awaken your Sharingan, aka lose love in order to gain more power, which is, like I said, the point of Ninshu. Like Hagoromo said, you have to have power and you have to have love to truly be a leader in the realm of Ninshu. So the obstruction of the path, and that's something important to talk about. When we talk about the obstruction of a personal path, it's important to point out that there are people who specifically manipulate people to abandon their paths, that specifically very intentionally obstruct others' paths, obstruct love. And then there are people who doubt themselves, or have some quote unquote negative or otherwise emotion that obstructs their own path. There's no shame in obstructing your own path. There's no shame in getting in your own way. But you have to acknowledge it in order to move past it if you are the roadblock itself. And it's important when mentioning that, because this is a huge narrative theme in Naruto, where a lot of characters get in their own way, either because they were not told at a young age, or they were given maybe false information, like Kakashi, right? Kakashi's father, Sakamo, chose to save his comrades instead of getting I believe it was retrieving a very important document, right? He put the safety of his comrades, he prioritized that over the mission, and this caused Kakashi to have a skewed sense of how a shinobi should behave. And part of that was because he loved his father so much, right? Like, he loved Sakamo, and he did not want anybody, because ultimately that is what caused his death. He didn't want anybody to doubt him, doubt his power, doubt who he is, right? So he harbored this anger towards Sakamo, but he also harbored this sense of responsibility, if we call it back to Indra, where it's like, in Kakashi's case, he didn't want people to look at Sakamo as if he did something wrong, so he felt that he had to do the opposite of what Sakamo did. So, as his sole heir, as his sole, his son who survived, he has to be a good example of, a shinobi to honor his father's path. And this ultimately, of course, leads those same people who were like, why didn't you just leave me to die for the mission, right? It leaves those same people when Kakashi's on their team, and Kakashi essentially literally leaves them, to die, but they don't. It leads those same people to be like, I don't want to be on team with him. Like, he just don't give a fuck, right? Anyway, I digress. So Hagoromo and the establishment of Ninshu And, you know, his own bridge is the beginning of course, Ninshu and the Naruto story as we know it. But now it's important to go back to the Great Naruto Bridge, which is, of course, at the beginning of the series, right? This arc, of course, starts with Tazuna's commission. He comes into, you know, the mission room, and he says, I really love actually how he introduces himself. He introduces himself as a master bridge builder who is building a bridge that will, quote unquote, change our world, which of course, as we know, as Naruto viewers, Naruto fans, that's what he did. Like the Great Naruto Bridge, right? Like that's the point. And he says he expects them to get there safely, even if it means, quote, giving up their life, right? And I really love this because he was very shocked at how young they were. Like, you know, these little runts or whatever he said, like, you know, you ain't got anybody else. And, you know, it's supposed to be a C-rank mission. There's not supposed to be, you know, combat with shinobi or anything. Like, they are definitely more than capable for, like, thieves and, you know, shit like that, right? But, like, Tazuna, you know, knew that he lied, and he lied for a very, you know, important reason. And I really love the world building of Tazuna's lie, because it signifies that, well, for one, historically, the Leaf Village is the best place to go to if you need any type of, you know, protection. If you need to hire a shinobi, that is, like, definitively the best place to go to, right? But it also signifies, because they do complete this mission, and of course, not every mission that, you know, somebody lies about will be completed, right? But it signifies the level of trust that most people have in the Leaf Village. Like, the Leaf Village has done a very good job at really fostering that trust, aka that Ninshu, right? The Will of Fire, Hashirama, you know, all the descendants, you know, of Ashura, like Ashura's will, right? Like, so he felt safe enough to lie, but he's the type of man that has the integrity that he wouldn't want to hurt children, right? That's the point of his arc, right? Like, he's building the bridge for that reason. Like, he is a hero in his own right, very, very obviously. So, anyway, as they leave the village, you know, of course, they get attacked by the demon brothers, Gozu and Meizu. Gozu and Meizu attacking Team 7 is, so inherently important to this mission and to Naruto himself. Naruto has, over the course of the series, I believe, made 2 blood oaths. I'm not sure if there was more, but I know for sure there were 2 blood oaths. This is his first blood oath that he makes. Of course, an oath, you know, a blood oath is an oath or a promise or, you know, something like that, made with the presence of blood, of course, right? So, you know, as he stabs himself to bleed the poison out, he says, and I quote, "Why am I so different? Why am I always, I worked so hard to get here, pushing myself until it hurt, training alone for hours, anything to get stronger, to reach my dream. I will never back down and let someone else rescue me. I will never run away, and I will not lose to Sasuke. Upon this wound, I make this pledge, believe it. Bridge builder, I'll complete this mission and protect you with this kunai knife." And I really, really love, that oath and that scene for many reasons, but one of the reasons is before he made that blood oath, like, both Kakashi and also Sakura were like, "Girl, like, this mission is too much for us." Like, but something I really love is that when Kakashi ponders, like, out loud, "I guess we gotta go back to the village, Naruto's hurt," he side-eyes Naruto, not in the way that's, like, blaming him or anything, of course, but in a way that's testing his resolve. Kakashi was genuinely considering not going back to the village, even though, of course, as a Jonin, like, that would be his duty. And oh my god, like, I even spoke about, you know, a little bit before, that Kakashi has that weight of, like, what is a shinobi, what should they do, right? He didn't even really heal that until the bell test. Like, you know, we see this later in the series where, you know, the ghost, right? Not ghost, but like anytime a ghost is shown in the show, well, besides like the actual named as ghost, and even if they are ghosts, it's the energetic imprint of like Ninshu, right? It's like, because we see people who appear like as the quote unquote ghost who are not dead, like Obito, right? So that's Obito's will as Ninshu, kind of like, you know, people talk about the higher self, right? That's the higher, right? That's the Ninshu like projection, right? So he actually did heal that. He started to heal it, right? You never, you know, you don't fully heal just like that or anything, but you know, so he genuinely wanted to see like what Naruto would think. Like, so I genuinely think that he was, you know, like, of course open to continuing it, because of course he did, right? And I really love that he said he'll protect. He said, "Bridge Builder, I'll complete this mission and protect you with this kunai knife." That is actually a very relevant point later that, you know, I'll mention this again. So, on the boat to the Land of Waves, you know, before they have to, of course, walk the rest of the stretch there, Talzana explains Gato why he's after his life. Now, if you haven't guessed it already or put two and two together, Gato is in this specific arc, he is the character that narratively obstructs the bridge, obstructs the personal path. You know what I mean? Like, so while Tazuna is explaining to Team 7 about Gato, something that he says, and I quote, "In an island nation, a man who controls the sea controls everything. Finance, government, our very lives. But there's one thing he fears, the bridge. When it is complete, it'll join us to the land, and that will break his control. I am the bridge builder. If you end the mission when you drop me ashore, there will be no bridge." And I really love this, because this ties back into... Hey, buddy. Hello. This ties back to the concept that Ninshu is connection. It is love. Like to, you know, obstruct the path of Ninshu, to obstruct the path of love is to separate people. That's the point, right? And this concept, of course, really, really emulates like real life, where a lot of people are divided. So, you know, Tazuna talks about how Gato is one of the wealthiest people in the world. And, you know, in real life, we do see the separation a lot. You know, there's this side, there's that side, there's, you know, the good people and the villains, there's this and that and this and that and this and that, right? All this separation in real life. And this leads people to think that the world is inherently bad because there is, you know, a good side and a bad side, and there's no nuance to anything. And you know, especially like when we think about politics and stuff, it's like the only people that really benefit from that are the gatos, are the wealthy people who, you know, really want sales or anything like that, right? So it's like, you know, we, the, you know, the little people, right? Like the majority of people, like, we're just connected, right? So like we're connected outside of all of that, all of these labels. So like, when we look at Gato, we see that he hires a lot of ex-shinobi. Like, he hires a lot of rogue ninja, you know, people that are kicked out. Of course, like, Zabuza and, you know, Haku, right? Those are just, I mean, really, those are, like, the most powerful people he has in his employ. He usually has, like, Genin, you know, Chunin, maybe even, like, just non-ninja, right? Like, I think some people showed up with, like, fucking crossbows and shit, right? Like, and Gato even said to, you know, Zabuza at the end of the day, like, if you could take out some of these people, like, that would help me, because, like, I don't want to pay him, right? Like, so it's like this whole perceived concept of enemy obstructs the path of Ninshu regardless. So, you know, cut ahead to the Zabuza fight. The first Zabuza fight, of course. There was a certain point in that fight where Naruto was so scared facing Zabuza that, you know, he was about to run away. But as he, you know, put the pressure on his hand to get up, he recounted the Oath of Pain. And then he, you know, the Oath of Pain, right? Actually, wait. That is what he calls his blood oath. That is the title of episode 8, right? And I really, really love that because it, for one, it foreshadows the existence of pain, right? Like, don't know if that was intentional. Like, what the fuck? That is so good. So for one, foreshadows the existence of pain as a sibling student, right? So we see Naruto really embody the concept of Ninshu, and Ninshu is of course love and power. However, pain is an integral part of Ninshu, right? Like, as we saw Hagoromo explain to Ashura, like, to, struggle together and to work together, like, when things don't come easy for you, and a group of people, you naturally build bonds, and that kind of happiness is, like he said, it's much more solid. It has a much more stable foundation. So we look at, pain and the founding of the Akatsuki, Nagato, Yahiko, all that, but then, came in pain, of course. And that's kind of the point, though. I'm a little off topic here, but Pain, he kind of had the absence of love because he already lost everything, so he was kind of giving up on the world to, start anew. And anyway, there's so much I can't really go into with that, but I really love that it's called the Oath of Pain and, all those connections, right? So anyway, when Haku took down Zabuza, right? Yes, took down Zabuza, at least as Team 7 perceives it. Naruto, it really expressed his frustration. He's like pointing at Haku and yelling, and Kakashi's like, "That's not our enemy, girl," because of course, that's how it was perceived. And I really love this response because Kakashi responds, "In this world, there are kids who are younger than you and yet stronger than me." And then, we see a cut to Sasuke, and he gets, frustrated about that, hearing that, but he doesn't, of course, express it like Naruto. I think if he felt safe enough to express what Naruto felt, safe enough in the team to express, I do think Sasuke would have maybe, at least had it a little easier before he defected, but I digress. So Naruto gets frustrated and he starts like punching the ground, like he's really like crashing out. I feel for him. He says, "What are we doing here? We're nothing. I can't believe it." Like, he really started this mission like, I'm gonna like clear this shit, piece of cake type shit, right? And then, he really faces this obstacle where he's face to face with a kid who's about his age and, just killing this motherfucker, or at least perceived, right? And Kakashi says, "As ninja, the things we encounter are never easy. Save your anger for the next enemy." And I really, of course, love this foreshadowing because the next enemy is Haku, right? And there's, oh, girl. Anyway, cut to the land of waves, and, we have Team 7 doing their Chakan control training. We have Inari, very obviously upset for obvious reasons, the trauma with his father and everything. So before the actual backstory of Kaiza, I really love the portrayal of Tazuna, because the portrayal of Tazuna frames him, of course, as a hero, because he is. Let's keep it a buck, right? So Kaiza is the hero, but it's not verbalized, it's not stated, but Tazuna is a hero for what he's doing, right? So there are a few scenes I want to mention. So 2 of them, I believe. So the first one is a worker quits working on the bridge. Like, of course, this is a very small nation. Everybody knows each other. Everybody's friends, right? It's one of those, right? So, this is like an old buddy coming up to him to be like, I quit, our dream, really. So he says, when Gato and his thugs show up, quote, "They'll kill you and the bridge will never get finished anyway. It's a lost cause, Tazuna. Why don't we stop now while we can still get out of this alive?" And then Tazuna says, "No chance. This is our bridge. Our island is poor and it will stay that way until this bridge connects us to the mainland. Commerce, trade, and hope. That's what we're building here." I love this because he is very confident in who he is. He is very confident in his dream. He is very confident in what he stands for. And like I said, he's a true hero because he fucking is, right? and someone like that is really important to have as a leader, right? And, this ties into the next scene where Sakura goes to the store with Tazuna, and a kid comes up to her. And this kid, extends their hands together and looks up at her and laughs, right? Like, requesting food, right? Sakura gives this kid a few pieces of candy, and she's very sad, like she's sullen about it. She just saw the grocery store, and there was like a couple fucking carrots and like really nothing else. And she said, "Here you go," and she's so sad, and she's truly realizing, like, oh shit, like outside, Sakura's very smart, very studious, she really cares. And this was so important for her as a character, because she's truly realizing, like, outside of the Leaf Village, it's a different ball game, right? And she cares so much, and she knows that she can't solve all these problems, but she wants to. And she's like, there's very obviously some, inner turmoil, inner reflection, going on. And then this aids into, what she accomplishes after the war. Let's keep it a buck. I'll get into that some other time. But something I really like about the portrayal of that kid is that kid still that kid's still a kid, right? They still have their inner child, right? Because they are a child, but not everybody in the shinobi world, in the real world, whatever, has access to that as a kid, which I think does speak well about the Land of Waves adults, and how they still try to nurture that life for kids if they can. And this really interestingly ties into the next scene with Tazuna, which is the same scene really. But Tazuna says, "This is how it's been since Gato came here. The children suffer, and the adults are afraid to stand up to him. They've lost all hope. That's why we have to finish the bridge. It will bring commerce and trade, but much more importantly, that bridge is a symbol of courage. We must restore the spirit of our people. When the bridge is finished, people will start to believe again." And then he clenches his fist. And he says, "They'll believe they can live with dignity. We can't let Gato stop us." Oh my god, I love this, because it's like Tazuna, like, for one, so valid to lie on that Leaf Commission. For two, it's so happy that he got Team 7, because the importance of this mission, for one, I don't think the other teams would have gotten out of this alive. Of course, Team Guy, but we're not mentioning that because that's not like Naruto's grade, right? But I'm very confident Team Guy would have handled it. But the importance here is really what it gave Naruto, right? Naruto gained much more than anybody else on Team 7, right? And I really love Tazuna because there were quite a few scenes where he did not enforce the mission on Team 7. So during the first Zabuza fight, after Kakashi was captured, he said, "Run, forget me, stay on mission." And Naruto and all of Team 7 looked at Tazuna, and he's like, "Go and save your sensei," right? And that's very beautiful, because he was trying to appear pretty tough when he was commissioning them originally, but that's because he wanted to scare the kids. He didn't want kids to be assigned to this. He did not think that lying would get kids assigned to this, right? But he since he has his own connection to Ninshu and his own personal path, his purpose, what he believes to be the right way to act and think and whatever, right? He acknowledges that in other people, and he tries to create the space for others to embody their own path, what's important to them. Also, later on the bridge, Sasuke's trapped in the ice mirrors at this point, and Sakura is like, "Sorry, Tazuna, I gotta go do this," and he's like, "Go do what you gotta do." She leaves him open for a little bit until Naruto comes, right? So as Tazuna begins to recount Inari's father, Kaiza, to Team 7, he says the word courage was stolen from this island. And then, cue the backstory. And the three important main factors of the Land of Waves arc, of course, is Kaiza and the villagers, Haku, Zabuza, right? And then, of course, Gato's obstruction of Ninshu, right? So in terms of Kaiza, when he saves Inari, he saves Inari from drowning, trying to save his dog, right? So he says, quote, "But always remember this. Live your life so you have nothing to regret. If you care about something, protect it. No matter how tough, no matter how sad, you've got to keep trying. Even if you have to put your life on the line, protect it with both arms. Never give in." So, of course, this is relevant for many reasons, but I do want to point out that he has a lot of scars on his arms as, a character design, right? And of course, that is so important because that shows that all this time before he came to the Land of Waves, right? Because I believe he was from outside of the Land of Waves. Before he came here, he has been embodying his path, his ninja way, right? Because Ninshu is not, it is, of course, the connection. It's the love. It's the balance between power and love. It's embodying it, right? It is the path, right? But it's also like, your personal path. You could be a ninja and still have a ninja way, still have Ninshu, right? These are essentially the same thing. So this protecting something with both arms, live your life so you have nothing to regret, all these things. These are essentially Kaiza's ninja way. This is his path. This is his Ninshu, right? So we not only see that he has a lot of scars on his arms, and that is, of course, a character design choice to show that he embodies his path. But when he is sadly executed by Gato, they cut his arms off. And then they execute him. Like it's bad. And he still smiles as he's being executed. And I really love this because it really shows that he really has been embodying his path this entire time. He's willing to get executed, right? Like he's willing to die for this. Like, he is willing to protect this. So upon hearing this story, Naruto, he's very determined. He says, "I'm gonna prove it. I'll prove that it's true. That in this world there are real heroes." And I really love this. I love so much of this arc because it's so integral. It's so important to the entire series, to Naruto, to who he is, to his ninja way, to everything, really. But the importance of Kaiza and his impact on the villagers, right? Pretty much everybody gave up for, honestly, understandable reason. Like, Gato is literally out here executing people who stand up for what they believe in. Like, and the guy at the bridge who quit, he told Tazuna, I believe he told Tazuna, like, I have a family, I cannot risk dying for this. That's obviously, like, a lot of people's, their quote-unquote truth, right? Not everybody wants to be a leader, and not everybody feels that they can genuinely, and that's okay. Like, Kaiza, like, that is very obviously a path that he chose for himself and he embodied, and that's the important part of choice. And there are a lot of paths and principles that I have upheld since I was a very young kid. I remember I was 9 years old and I, told myself, like, I plan on embodying and walking the path of truth to find the truth, like, outside of it all, regardless of whether it's a lonely endeavor to do so, right? So some people like Kaiza and like me, they make up their mind very young to be like, okay, this is what I want to do. This is something that is very integral to my path. This is something I will always embody. This is something I will always come back to, right? Regardless of mistakes, regardless of, little missteps and shit, right? But the important part of that bridge builder who quit, of course, he probably later came back after Gato passed away. But the importance of him is that he is important. He really is. Like, he is an important carpenter who works for Tazuna. Like, everybody, regardless of whether they have some big path, some big purpose that, they want to embody, they want to, really give to the world the path that they want to walk, or regardless of if it is seen as smaller, more, quote-unquote, minute, right? everybody is important. Everybody has purpose. Everybody contributes something, even if that something is, through the eyes of, society, nothing, right? So Kaisa's death left this impact on the Land of Waves, where everybody's scared to speak up against something. Everybody just, feels that they have to line up and obey, right? Tazuna is really the only one pioneering, right? Spearheading the path of change at this moment, because he is building the bridge. And there are a lot of carpenters. I mean, it's like a fishing village. Of course there are a lot of carpenters, so they are also integral to the sort of last stand that the people of the Land of Waves have and can take. So when we talk about the impact of Kaisa's death on the Land of Waves, we of course have to talk about the impact of it on Inari. He had cut or torn out the picture of Kaisa, and he always has it in his room. And Inari was so young when Kaisa lived with him and passed away, right? And Kaisa was the only like real example of a hero for Inari. So it makes sense that he would misunderstand the concept of a hero, like that heroes don't exist because, essentially there's not immortality, right? Bad things can still happen to good people, of course. So he's so important to this arc, and his role is, doubting the heroes, doubting the shinobi, and then of course coming into his own as his own hero, walking his own path. So Tazuna asks Kakashi why they stayed to protect him even after finding out about him lying. And Kakashi says, quote, "Those who stray from the path of justice have no courage, but under the wing of a strong leader, cowardice cannot survive." And then, he says that's a quote from the first Hokage, Hashirama. So I really love this quote because, of course, it emulates, it portrays a lot of things. One of the things it portrays, though, is not only Kaisa, but Tazuna. Like I said, in his own right, he is a hero. Anyway, Inari looks at Naruto and remembers Kaisa, and then he cries, and he says to Naruto, "But why? All this stupid training is just a waste of time. Gato has a whole army. They'll beat you down and they'll destroy you. These cool things you say, they don't mean anything. No matter what you do, the strong always win and the weak always lose." And then Naruto says, "Just speak for yourself. It won't be like that for me. You got that?" And then Inari says, "Why don't you be quiet? Just looking at you makes me sick. You don't know anything about this country. You're just butting in, always laughing and playing around. You don't know what it's like to suffer and be treated like dirt." And then Naruto says, "Listen to yourself, whining and complaining like some sorry little victim. You can whimper all day for all I care. You're nothing but a coward." Now, those were some harsh exchanging of words from both parties, to be honest, but I of course I think they're both valid, right? Like, there's nuance to everything, like I said. Ultimately, this is the projection of a wounded child, very obviously. I mean, a huge part of Inari's journey is that he does hold anger towards Kaisa. Like, is being a hero worth the sacrifice that you may have to make? Is the losses that you could incur worth doing what you believe in and sticking to your own personal path? So because, he's projecting. And the thing with projecting, I feel like I need to, point this out. Projecting is usually used as a negative term, but it's something that we all do. We all live primarily, mostly in our heads. We're all wounded. We all have to work through these wounds. So when we project, it's really not a negative thing. It's really just something that we should, face within ourselves and heal when we can. We should really all try to introspect and be like, okay, well, if I'm saying this mean thing, or if I'm, feeling this or whatever, right, this judgment or something, why? And what does this say about something I lack? What could I be projecting here? And then, we usually find it's either an old wound, or it has nothing to do with the situation, with the person, with ourselves. It's so nuanced, really, when you really do the work and look inside yourself, and you're like, okay, well, what am I projecting? It's so nuanced. But, you know, when he says these cool things you say, they don't mean anything. Of course, in the moment, he's referencing the Hashirama quote from Kakashi. But he's also projecting and remembering Kaisa's quote, right? Like, does it mean anything to protect something with both arms when those very arms, you know, can be taken from you? Obviously very philosophical and existential questions that a kid really could struggle to process when they don't have the words for it, right? So Kakashi goes to talk to Inari, and he says, you know, I quote, it's a very long quote, by the way, I quote, "Your grandfather told us what happened to your father. You probably don't know this, but Naruto also grew up without a father. In fact, he never knew either of his parents, and he didn't have a single friend in our village. Still, I've never seen him cry, sulk, or give up. He's always eager to jump in. He wants to be respected. That's his dream. He'll put his life on the line for that in a heartbeat. My guess is he just got tired of crying and decided to do something about it. Even though he's young and still learning, he knows what it means to be strong like your father did. I think he knows better than any of us what you're going through. What Naruto told you earlier, as cruel as it sounded, he's probably told himself that 1,000 times." I really love this quote because honestly in my life I've been going through something similar, where it's like there's a point in rock bottom that you face where you really have to come face to face with yourself. You know, you really have to face yourself and be like, okay, you know, these things are happening, this thing happened, right? Whatever, right? What can I do about it? Like, where do I go from here? Because you have to do something regardless, right? Like, and that's the important part is, you know, Naruto, the thing that he quote unquote does about it is he trains, right? You have to redirect the direction of your focus. So cut to the second key figure in the Land of Waves arc, which would be Haku. Now, both times Naruto interacted with Haku during the Lands of Waves arc, of course, really, that's the only time he interacted with Haku. But they were both very brief. The first one is him interacting with Haku in the mask and, you know, expressing his frustration at not being at that level of strength yet. And then the second time was in the forest, where he fell asleep after training all night. Haku goes to try to kill him. But, of course, as we know, Haku has a very kind heart. Haku wakes him up, you know, asks him, why do you have to get stronger? What are you doing all this for, really? Naruto, of course, says he wants to become the Hokage, and so everybody will stop disrespecting him. You know, everyone will look up to him. And he says because he has something to prove to Sasuke. And then Haku asks if it's for Sasuke or himself, and you know, Naruto's confused. He hasn't really been asked anything existential like this at this point. Actually, the one time when this is in Iruka's backstory after the pain fight. It's called Iruka's Ordeal. Iruka asks him, do you have the will of fire in you as young as you are? Which I really love that he asked him that, because that's like, you know, exactly what Hiruzen asked him as a kid. And Naruto's like, what's that? And then, you know, he tells him that, and he's like, yes, I do, and, like, I'm gonna become Hokage. You know, that's where he gets his dream to be Hokage. I love that arc. So, Haku says, you know, verbatim, you see, when a person has something precious that they want to protect, then they become genuinely strong. So Naruto remembers Inari and Kaiza. He remembers Kakashi saying, I'll protect you with my life, all of you. He remembers Iruka defending Naruto from Mizuki's shuriken, and then he remembers him, you know, Naruto threatening Mizuki, you know, if you lay a finger on my sensei, I'll kill you, right? Then he agrees with Haku, right? Because these are all very rather intense examples of somebody protecting something and being strong in doing so. And I think it's really important that the, you know, little series of flashbacks here that Naruto has ends with him threatening Mizuki. Ends with him saying, if you lay a finger on my sensei, I'll kill you. Because, of course, up until this point, Mizuki is also his sensei, right? So this shows, you know, obviously the disownment of Mizuki. But more than anything, it's like when he is met with Haku's words and he has these series of flashbacks. The last one that he remembers is when he embodied that. He was genuinely strong when he was protecting Iruka. You know, those thousands of shadow clones that, like, all beat the shit out of Mizuki, right? And that's also the importance of Ninshu, is that And, you know, we see this throughout the entire series of Naruto, where when Naruto gives people his love, you know, because people see ninja as duty-bound, which they are. So for a duty-bound, you know, military guy, essentially, kid, to, you know, genuinely offer love and help, when people see him embody it, and when they're able to embody the feeling, they begin to understand. If you don't understand something, depending on what it is, there is a certain extent where you can't really understand it unless you've experienced it. And I say certain extent because I think most things you can. You know, I think empathy does exist, and that's also the concept of Ninshu, right? Is the connection to other people, and how, you know, if you can like visualize it and really try to put yourself in other people's shoes, you can understand pretty much anything. But there is a very genuine level of like understanding where it's like you kind of have to embody it to truly understand at least how to embody it. Like, for an example, when I started to work out, I really genuinely had no muscle. I still really struggle with this, but, you know, the more I worked, because, you know, people would say, like, you know, when you do this workout, you have to activate this muscle, and they would tell me how, and I would genuinely not be able to activate it, so I would put a lot more stress on my joints than I obviously should. And it wasn't until doing the repetitive motions, you know, the repetitive workouts, that I built enough muscle to be able to understand how to activate that muscle. So anyway, in terms of Haku's continued story here, Naruto had those two encounters with Haku, and, you know, while they were quite short, they were both emotionally impactful to some extent. So on the bridge, when Naruto is not there, Kakashi, Tazuna, Sakura, and Sasuke all mock Haku for impersonating an Anbu. Kakashi says, and I quote, "It was all an act with a cute little mask." I really love this because they're dehumanizing Haku, which is the point. You know, when you put on a mask, regardless of what it is, especially if it's something very intense, like in Haku's case, you know, impersonating an Anbu while being on the run from those said Anbu, you know, and you know, tricking people, right? Like, sadly, people jump to dehumanization in that point, but I think that narratively that is so important to really Kakashi's story, if you know, you know, with Obito and everything, and then of course his own mask. But the thing with Haku wearing the mask is that he can't like truly be himself, right? And that's another thing that obstructs Ninshu and your own personal path, is donning a mask. Now, everybody has a mask to some extent, right? Like right now, I'm honestly nervous talking into a microphone, so I'm talking a lot quieter than I usually do. Like, I'm usually very loud because it's hard to breathe because I'm so nervous. So that can be considered a mask. The way that we act around, you know, friends and family, and you know, these all are different, right? So it's like technically a mask, but it's also not technically a mask, right? But since Haku doesn't have his own sense of self because he was not allowed to, the mask then becomes an escape and an avoidance of the responsibility of being who you truly are. And since you cannot, you know, when you avoid the responsibility of being who you truly are, since you cannot face and love yourself, and since you do not know yourself, since you avoid yourself, then it becomes, you know, you dehumanizing yourself, right? And that's what that's where Haku is right now, as well as, you know, in the future, Obito, Pain, right? They have these masks that stem from the avoidance of themselves, and then that eventually becomes the self-inflicted dehumanization of oneself. And I really love this because Haku is still himself. He's just not projecting it to others in an obvious way, not even Zabuza. When Haku fights Sasuke, he says, "We want the bridge builder, not you. If you back down, I won't have to kill you." And Zabuza actually wonders if Haku means that he doesn't want to kill Sasuke. See, and this is the thing, it's like Haku was always himself, but since he has that mask that he's forced to wear, it's not really obvious to those outside of him. So when Naruto enters the fight, enter Naruto Uzumaki episode 1 type of vibe, he says to Haku, right, because he sees Haku, he sees that he has this mask on, he's like, oh shit, you lied, right? He said, "I'm warning you, one way or another, I'm gonna rip off that mask and take you apart." I love this because it's like even Naruto dehumanizes him because he does not know who he is under the mask, right? When you wear a mask to that extent, and you don't let anybody in, nobody knows, right? So nobody's even really out here acknowledging that he's human. So Naruto goes on to speak to Haku, and he says, "That mask in your bogus story. You were with Zabuza all along. You think you can get away with a stunt like that?" And Haku says, "I'm sorry, but as your sensei said, deceiving your opponent, catching them off guard, that is the art of the shinobi. Please don't take it personally." I love this because, of course, as we later find out, Haku did not choose to be a shinobi. Haku did not want to be a shinobi. This was forced upon him. Like, I really would love to know what Haku would be if not a shinobi. I like to think maybe he makes like ice sculptures or something very cute. It really is such a shame because it's like genuinely, as we all know, like his parents didn't accept him. You know, his mom married, hid the Kekkei Genkai for survival, and then called Haku evil when he activated this ability. And then the father ultimately killed the mother, and then Haku ultimately killed everybody who came to witch hunt him, right? I really like how during this entire fight within Haku's ice mirrors, Haku is visibly shocked by Naruto's resilience, and of course Sasuke's, because Haku is really such a young kid to be able to be as strong as he is. So it has to be unnerving to some extent. To see these young kids that, you know, when people perceive the Leaf Village, regardless of what era, they usually perceive it as a cushy life because it's technically better than the, you know, other nations, right? Kind of like how in America, some people in different countries and even in America are kind of like, you know, think that it's a cushy life when a lot of people like genuinely suffer and struggle in a lot of ways, right? So when Naruto fails to destroy the mirror with his clones, he says, "I couldn't break through, so what? He's not going to stop me. I'm not giving up, and I'm not going to lose here, because I have a dream, and no one's going to take it away from me. To be respected in my village, that's my dream, to be the greatest Hokage." You know, at this point, Haku has a flashback, meeting Zabuza on the bridge, and Zabuza says, "No one wants you, huh? Before winter ends, you'll die with nothing, not even a dream." And I love this part because Haku says, "Your eyes are just like mine, mister. We're both the same." And I really love this because I do plan on making a separate video on this. But Zabuza's never really been the demon that he's portrayed as, even if, you know, he, you know, says, like, "I relished in killing all my classmates," right? The reality is, he was indoctrinated into the Blood Mist Village, and, you know, I have a theory about him really not wanting to do that. My theory is that he killed his classmates so they wouldn't become monsters, right? So he takes the brunt of that. And this is really why I love this exchange, because Zabuza kind of portrays it like he's looking down on Haku, right? Before winter ends, you'll die with nothing, not even a dream. And then Haku says, "Your eyes are just like mine, mister. We're both the same. We were both put on the path of shinobi when that's maybe not even what we wanted." And I really like Boruto, like, as a series with the world building, because we really get to see like a world where like you're not forced into this. I mean, some people still are, of course, like the ironically enough, the ice style user in the Shikadai arc, right? This I-style user, was forced into it. A lot of people in Boruto are forced into it because that's kind of the point. But, like the war, it doesn't stop, right? Like even if Ninshu is bridged and created, like it whatever, right? So then, coming out of the flashback, Haku says to both Sasuke and Naruto, "It was not my desire to be a shinobi. It's painful. I don't want to kill you, but if you advance, I will have no choice. Then I will kill the kindness in my own heart and fully embrace the shinobi way, and there will be no mercy, no turning back. This bridge will be the battlefield where our dreams collide. Now I must fight for my dream just as you fight for yours. Please do not blame me. I fight for someone who is precious to me. I live for him, and I face death for him, so that his dream may become a reality. That is my dream, and for the sake of that dream, if I must, I will act as a shinobi and take your lives." Sasuke and Naruto, smile at this. They're both very determined to make their own dream come true, and that, of course, means for both of them getting stronger as a shinobi, so they need battle experience. I also really love this part because what's so important about this mission is that it's unnecessary. Haku and Zabuza are not the enemies of Team 7, and Team 7 are not the enemies of Haku and Zabuza. Actually, when Zabuza originally got, the original fight with Zabuza versus Kakashi, right? He's injured and he goes back to Gato's hideaway. And Gato, is talking shit to him, and then he approaches with, not good intent. And Haku, grabs his wrist and, breaks it, right? We see the camera pan to under Zabuza's sheets, and he has a kunai ready to kill Gato. So realistically, if he would have killed Gato there, like, none of this would have happened. But even before that, if they were not employed by Gato, none of this would have happened, because realistically, Zabuza only needed money. Like, that's it. He needed money to attempt the coup d'etat again. But that's the thing, is like, when Haku says he fights for his master's dream, he means Zabuza's dream to do the coup d'etat again. And he's probably continuously trying this fucking coup d'etat because the Blood Mist Village is fucking evil. Like, killing Yagura at this point, even though we all know, like, Obito was behind the genjutsu of Yagura, but killing Yagura at this point would be the equivalent to, Sasuke eventually killing Danzo, right? Like, Obito, right? But Yagura obstructed the path of shinobi, right? He obstructed Ninshu. Like, he was, like, the obstruction of Ninshu in Zabuza's personal story, and the Mist Village's personal story, right? Like, the previous wielder of the Executioner's Blade was on Itachi's team in the Akatsuki before Zabuza. Before Kisame, right? And he was, one of the people who survived Might Dai's assault, really. And, he gets tracked down by Yagura and killed. Yagura, the minions and everything, right? And there was that beautiful scene of Itachi putting the Executioner's Blade either next to him or in his hands, because that guy really cared about the Executioner's Blade. It was a very important blade to him, so Itachi at least, like, sent him off, in death with that. Then we have, of course, the iconic scene of Sasuke taking the hits for Naruto and being suspended in a state of death. I do think it's important to point out that, like, by all rights, he was dead, even if he wasn't dead. Because it suspends you in a state of death, right? Like, so Naruto actually thought he was dead. Like, he actually felt as if he was dying. He said his last words. He says, and I quote, "He's still out there, my brother. I promised myself I'd stay alive until I killed him. Naruto, don't let your dream die." Haku says he found a strength he didn't realize he had. Why? Because of a certain person who was precious to him. To save that person, he rushed in knowing it was a trap. He was a true ninja worthy of honor. Is this the first time you have seen a friend die in battle? This is part of what it means to be a ninja. Of course, this leads to Naruto feeling such intense emotions that the Ninetales power leaks out. Very, very beautiful hype scene, right? Haku verbatim says, "What is this chakra? Chakra cannot be seen, yet it's clearly visible. It's something ghastly. I can feel the wrath, the bloodlust, like evil itself. His hand is healing and changing. This boy, what is he?" And I really love this parallel with Naruto, because the thing with Indra, right? Indra, the reincarnations of Indra, whatever, they're seen as... Hello. Fuck, what was I saying? So Indra, his descendants, and his reincarnations are all people who feel a lot of love. They care, right? And of course, Black Zetsu obstructed this concept where people think that they're hateful, they're spiteful, right? And to some extent they can be, of course, but that's also the importance of like the Indra and Ashura debacle, where it's like, oh, this is hate and bad, and then this is love and good, right? Indra and Ashura, since they are the sons of Hagoromo, which is, the son of Kaguya, right? They both have that balance. Like, they're technically the descendant of the same person, even if they're descendants of different people. So if we look at Ashura's descendants, Tobirama's a big example of somebody who's very hateful, honestly. Like, he does what he does because he thinks it's right, but it's ultimately a path of separation and of hate. And then, of course, the descendant of Indra that really embodies the concept of Ashura is, well, honestly, more people than the Ashura bloodline, but the one that I really originally thought of is Kagami Uchiha, which even Danzo was like, yeah, there have been Uchiha who are good. Kagami. And which, ironically enough, Kagami means mirror, which, if you're in like the spiritual community, a person as a mirror reflects inner truths, stuff like that. So Kagami was, ironically enough, a mirror or a reflection to the people who supposedly embody in Ashura's ideals, and he was a mirror and a reflection of them to convey we're not different, not like you think. And then, of course, there's Shisui Uchiha and Itachi Uchiha, and they're very much Ashura coded, really. So anyway, I digress. Back to the Ninetales Awakening. Kakashi has PTSD from the Ninetales incident, as most Konoha citizens that were alive at the point do. It cuts to Zabuza saying, "What is this energy? Something foul. Is it Kakashi? No, it's too powerful even for him. Where is it coming from?" And then Kakashi points out, in his head, he thinks, oh, it's Naruto, I have to stop it. And I really love this, because it's like, here is in your mind, I love you so much. Like, he was very, very intentional with, I'm gonna make a whole video on this, but he was very intentional with Team 7's, grouping. So anyway, Haku's in survival mode. This triggers, survival mode. It triggers fight or flight. Like, you're being hunted by hate. Oh yeah, that's why I mentioned the mirroring of Indra's descendants and Indra's reincarnations, right? And their whole concept of being misunderstood as people who are inherently evil or do not feel love or feel a lot of hate, right? I really like how Naruto, as the reincarnation of Ashura, struggles with hate, like literally the embodiment of hatred energy within him. Naruto experiences this active journey throughout the entire series to not rely on hate, to not embody hate, right? And that's such an important part of really everything. And as somebody who personally believes in reincarnation and believes in your soul choosing what to reincarnate into, choosing what experiences before birth, before life, to live in a way that will help you best walk your personal path and ultimately learn the karmic lessons that you want and need to learn. I really love that Naruto has to tackle this hate. It's a lot to get into, but ultimately all of the Intra reincarnations failed. They never found that harmony, and that's a part of Hashirama's debacle, really. So it's really cool to see Naruto reincarnate into a body that is forced to be a vessel for hatred itself and transmute that, really, and all of that culminates of course into him coming into that union with Kurama and acknowledging him as Kurama, citizen of the Hidden Leaf Village, right? And then all that, right? But that moment in the waterfall of truth when he hugs his hate, oh, so beautiful. Anyway, I remember when I first watched this Nine Tails Awakening, and I ultimately was disappointed because of course I didn't understand. I didn't have the analytical brain that I do now. It took several rewatches to really get to the point, but it was so abrupt. Like, it's like, oh, it's hype, like we're gonna fucking get this shit going, right? Because that's kind of all you see in the first watch through is like, girl, this is a fighting anime, and then you realize it's really not. Fighting is just the narrative vehicle through which the story flows, right? But he's about to like fuck Haku up, and he already fucks him up to a certain extent, but he breaks the mask and he sees that's the same boy in the woods, and he stays his punch, and he's confused because he's like, wait, like I had a genuine connection with you in the woods, but I don't like the guy in the mask. What's going on? So and this is where we get into the talk no jutsu aspect. I personally don't I think that the wording is funny, but I don't like the concept because it's like it really is so much more than talk no jutsu, right? I don't like to dilute what's really happening, but since he is confused, and Naruto, since he was abandoned by the village, since he was ostracized as much as he was not indoctrinated into shinobi law, right? Like we see later when Sakura is crying over Sasuke's presumably dead body. She recounts like a shinobi law. Like she remembered all the rules, all the laws, everything, right? It's very studious. Naruto's not the same way. So Naruto is really the perfect vehicle for Ninshu in the way that it is, because he was not indoctrinated, like so he's like, wait, like I don't understand, like help me understand. So Haku says his entire backstory. I really love this too, because as Haku says his entire backstory, it's really important to the narrative that Naruto is still confused. He still doesn't know what to do. So ultimately, since he is struggling existentially, right? He's very existential right now. He does not know what to do. Haku says, go on, finish it, kill me. Why do you hesitate? I thought you wanted to be a mighty warrior. Naruto responds, that's not what this is about. Do you really believe that's all there is to it? Just fighting and killing until there's only one man left standing? There's a lot more to being shinobi than that, and there are other ways of showing your strength than just by beating someone in battle. Haku, he says, I've had a feeling all along. From the first moment we met in the woods, we are a lot alike. I'm sure you know what I mean. Naruto doubts himself, and he actually, asks Haku if he's sure about killing him. Existential, so understandably existential too. He really doesn't know what to do. So Naruto ends up saying to Haku, the weird thing is, if we met in another time and place, I think that maybe we could have been friends. And then as he charges at Haku to kill him. which he doesn't, obviously. He says, this is for Sasuke because he also had a dream. Haku ultimately jumps in front of Kakashi's Chidori, lightning blade, whatever. After Haku dies, like right after really, Gato arrives. He fires Zabuza, and he asks Zabuza to kill some of the people he hired so he doesn't have to pay them. Evil shit, right? So, in everybody's perspective, obviously, this is a thankless death. This is a death that did not need to happen. And that's really the reality with a lot of the shinobi world, right? But shinobi are conditioned to not question. And that's the point with what I said, Naruto was not indoctrinated. He missed that, right? Gato kicks Haku. Naruto gets mad, starts yelling at Zabuza. Zabuza says Haku means nothing to him, but losing his usefulness does. And I really like that because it's like Zabuza is definitely projecting, but very sadly. But Kakashi tries to calm Naruto down. He says he's not the enemy because he's not. That's the point. They quit fighting once Gato fired Zabuza on the spot. Like, it's like, we're really not ops anymore. Like, that's the extent of the shinobi world, is like, it's like, we're really not enemies, we're just hired. But once we get fired, it's like, it's over, right? Like, so Naruto says, as far as I'm concerned, he's enemy number one. Naruto, in the future, when, Sakura confesses to him and he says, I hate people who lie to themselves. Why he hates people who lie to themselves is because they're not themselves, right? If you lie to yourself for a certain amount of time, you forfeit yourself, right? So Zabuza, in lying to himself that Haku doesn't matter, right? In lying to himself about everything, he is forsaking himself. So when I first watched, Naruto, and I didn't have that analytical lens, I remember thinking it was too convenient. Like, okay, so Naruto's chill with him now, but he was just having beef with him, right? Like, I thought it happened too fast, but that's not the case, because it's like, Naruto didn't hate Zabuza. He only hated the part of him that was lying to himself. So eventually, of course, he quits lying to himself, right? So, something that Naruto says is, after everything Haku did for you, Haku lived for you. And I really love that, because that really correlates to the final valley, where Naruto told Sasuke not to die for him, but to live with him, to build this future together. Like, that was obviously the culmination of healing Ninshu, right? And something that he says, and if I become stronger, does that mean that I'll become as cold-hearted as you are? And then this is so important right here. Zabuza said, while he fought you, his heart was breaking in two. You see, Haku was always too soft and too kind. He felt pain and sorrow, and now curse him, I feel them too. And something else, I feel content that this is the way it ends. And then he takes off his mask, right? He accepts himself. He stops lying to himself, right? He says, well, cat got your tongue. Are you so surprised to discover that I'm human? Even shinobi are human. No matter how hard we try to escape that simple fact, we always fail. Well, at least I have failed. And then he says, boy, give me your kunai. Naruto tosses him the kunai. The same kunai he made the blood oath with. The same kunai that he said, bridge builder, I'll protect you with this very kunai, right? Full circle. Beautiful. Kishimoto, you're mine. So anyway, of course, then he, in the manga, he beheads Gato. In the anime, he, still fucks him up, right? With that kunai in his mouth. I think that's so beautiful, because Naruto says, like, I'll protect you with this very kunai, right? But it was really Zabuza that protected the kunai. It was Zabuza that protected Tazuna. It was Zabuza that protected the bridge. It was Zabuza that protected the connection, because he killed the obstruction of Ninshu, right? Gato is the obstruction of Ninshu. So in a lot of other arcs, you see this, where everybody heals, and then the obstruction of Ninshu is killed, figuratively, metaphorically, whatever, it doesn't matter. So in this, we see even the demon is a shinobi, even a shinobi is a human, right? And we see that as the true Ninshu connection from it all. Everybody in this arc healed something. Haku healed. Zabuza healed. The villagers healed. To some extent, all of Team 7 came out of this differently, but Naruto really came out of it with a broader perspective because of the things that he experienced. As Zabuza dies, Naruto tries to turn away out of grief, and then Kakashi says, "Don't turn away. When you live like a warrior, this is how it ends." As the remaining thugs of Gato, tried to square up because they were not paid and their employer was killed, the villagers, led by Inari, come and, they square up. Inari, with his experience after his mom was kidnapped and Naruto, saved her, and right before Naruto saved her and saved him, he decided to do something, right? He's like, no, I'm gonna be courageous, I'm gonna do this, right? He rallies the villagers, and even when he knocks on one of the villagers' door, they say, look where being a hero got Kaiza. In the past, that would upset Inari, of course, but in this present time, he very obviously successfully rallied everybody, which love you, Inari. And when Inari, rallies rallies the villagers, he speaks to his mother, Tsunami. And Tsunami says, "Stop this, you're only a child. What do you think you can do?" He says, "You're right, I am just a kid, but a kid who knows what it means to stand and fight. I'm my father's kid." And then, of course, this village rallying lasts. This is hard-fought foundation. Now, when it comes to the ninja way and what you were indoctrinated to, experience, I really love this scene where Tazuna offers to go to Sasuke with Sakura, and he takes her hand. Right? She takes his hand, whatever. And you see the true difference in size here, where it's she is just a kid. She's just a little girl, genuinely. And her parents aren't even shinobi. She's really, the only person in their class without shinobi parents. She was not indoctrinated. And I think that that's so important. Sasuke also was not indoctrinated genuinely, because his family didn't include him in these meetings, right? These Uchiha meetings. He was not included. And Itachi, in more ways than one, really shielded him from these truths, such as, the path of the eldest, the older brother, right? But, as Sakura witnesses Sasuke's dead body, presumed dead, he says, "Go on, you don't need to be brave on my account. Go ahead and let your feelings out, Sakura, it's alright." And then she recites the 25th principle of shinobi conduct, as shinobi never shows his feelings no matter what the circumstance is. And something that Tazuna says is so important for the solidification of Naruto's ninja way. Of course, Naruto was not present when Tazuna said this, but this is something that Naruto, embodies when he makes his ninja way. Tazuna says, "To put such an unbearable burden..." Hi, honey. Come here. "To put such an unbearable burden on a young girl's shoulders. If that's the shinobi way, you can have it." So, as they place the executioner blade at the gravesite of Zabuza and Haku, Sakura says, "Is that really it, Kakashi-sensei? Is that the ninja way, to use and be used by people like tools?" Kakashi says, "Shinobi are all merely tools in the hands of destiny. No point in wondering whether it's right or wrong. It just is. It's the same in the village hidden in the leaves." Naruto says, "Well, if you ask me if that's what being a ninja is all about, something's out of whack. Is that why we go through all this training just to end up like them?" And even Sasuke says, "What is the reason for that?" Kakashi says, "Well, it's a question without an answer, and that is something we ninja have to deal with every day of our lives, like Zabuza and the kid." Naruto says, "Okay, I've just come to a decision. From now on, I'm finding my own ninja way, a way that's straight and true and without any regrets. From now on, I'm following the way of Naruto." And I really love this, of course, because this is what Naruto does throughout the entire series. Pretty much every arc, Naruto acts on his own to some extent because he's doing what he feels is right. He has been reprimanded for this several times, but also Kakashi got to the point where he quit reprimanding him for this. Like, he just lets him do it. But I think there was a certain point, I think it was the Gurren arc in Shippuden. He puts his foot down one time and he's like, no, seriously, like, girl. Kakashi's like, you know, no, seriously, Naruto, like, I'm putting my foot down this time. You cannot act on your own. As Naruto and the rest of Team 7 depart, Tazuna says it was all his doing. That boy made you stronger, Inari, and you in turn made the rest of us stronger. It was thanks to that boy we were able to build a bridge to a place we'd never known, a place where we found our courage, a place to fulfill our dreams. We'll call it the Great Naruto Bridge. And then someone says, you sure about that name, Tazuna? He says, it's a name that brought us good luck. It'll do the same for the bridge. I think this bridge will stand for a long, long time. Perhaps it'll even be famous one day. The name Naruto known throughout the world. That would be something, wouldn't it? Period. Period. You know, of course this refers to the literal bridge, of course, but Ninshu, right? Ninshu, like, his connection with an Inari made Inari stronger, and then Inari's, already established connection with the village made the village stronger, so they, all stepped up. And we see at the end of after the pain fight, there's this, a series of episodes, right? Anime canon. And, there's about 2 episodes of Inari. It's called literally Inari's Courage Put to the Test. And Inari comes back to the village. He comes to the village to help rebuild after the pain fight. He's a carpenter now. So essentially, in this backstory of the mission, quote-unquote mission that happens after they leave, for one, I like to point out the relevance of Kaiza is taped back to the original picture, and that, of course, signifies that Inari does not need Kaiza's picture in his room for courage. He has his own. He has his own sense of self. He has his own path. He has his own Ninshu. He doesn't need anything external. But also, essentially, to sum it up, Inari gets bullied by some kids, and these kids are like, you think you're fucking hot shit after, like, this arc, this mission, you think you're all that. And that's the thing with bullies, right? Quote unquote bullies, right? A lot of bullies don't do it from evil, from malice. They do it because they're jealous. It's a projection, like I was talking about earlier. Projection to some extent. So when they think that Inari thinks that he's hot shit, right? Inari doesn't actually think that. He's actually embodying courage in his own personal path. And this is something that they, of course, find out, right? And, essentially, to sum up this arc, Inari and the kids that are bullying him are kidnapped, and Inari's like, we gotta escape. We can't just be sitting here crying, right? So he escapes, and they're chasing him, and he's like, you guys go back to the village, I'll be the decoy. So he is the decoy, and then he goes to a cliff, and he jumps off, and he swims, because that's the thing, he couldn't swim. So there's a little flashback of Kaiza teaching him how to swim. And then the iconic line of shadow clones of Naruto come into the river and grab Inari's hand, and they fight off the rest of the people. And this fight, ironically enough, happens at a construction site, which emulates where they're at in the real world. Outside of the flashback, they're at the construction, the rebuilding of the Hidden Leaf Village. Of course, I forgot to mention, but if you've seen it, you've seen it. Naruto had to go back to the Land of Waves because he forgot an Ichiraku free coupon, and he likes to have Ichiraku after every mission. So Sasuke followed him to bring him back, and they ended up trying to find Inari because they realized something was wrong. And I love this because the bridge extends to the bullies, right? And Inari's story starts with bullies. It starts, I don't think it's the same bullies, but it starts with bullies who throw his dog into the water. And then Kaisa saves him and the dog swims out of the river on his own, right? And the bridge was extended to these bullies in this little arc specifically. Because they end up becoming friends with Inari. They're like, oh shit, like I actually realized that, and you helped me to face this within myself, right? And that's why I talk about projecting, and I talk about that mirror where it's like sometimes if you can't introspect and figure out why you're projecting, like somebody can mirror it to you, and that's kind of what Inari did for them, right? But we skip time skip back to the present moment, which they're talking about this in the Leaf Village after the pain fight, and the kids who bullied Inari not only became friends with him, but they are carpenters along with Inari and of course Tazuna. And Tazuna says, because of you, the land of waves has become very prosperous. And Inari says, I love this. That's right, and now it's time for us to return the favor. The first thing I'll build is Ichiraku. Just you watch, I'll build you an amazing noodle house. So, to TLDR, the Land of Waves arc, essentially, Naruto made a blood oath to never back down, never run away, never lose his Sasuke, and to protect the bridge builder with, quote-unquote, this kunai knife. Kaiza was seen as a hero in the Land of Waves, and his death led to the villagers lose hope, lose courage. They were oppressed by Gato, and Gato is in this arc, the narrative obstruction of Ninshu, obstruction of the bridge, quite literally. Haku and Zabuza worked for Gato, and they did not want to. Actually, why Haku stopped Zabuza from killing Gato is because they still need him for money. Inari learned heroes still exist and that courage is real through Naruto, and in doing that, he extended the Bridge of Ninshu to the villagers. Haku, really truly realized himself and acknowledged it and faced himself. Same with Zabuza. Under it all, like I said, seeing someone's heart and having your own heart seen in turn, facing your true self outside of it all, outside of lack, outside of survival, stepping into your integrity. This was a huge part, like I said, of just really any bridge, any connection with Ninshu in general, but the Land of Waves arc. So Haku and Zabuza, had that. The obstruction of Ninshu was quite literally eliminated, and then the bridge was able to be constructed. Through this, several people, realized their own ninja way, regardless of what it is, right? Their own path, their own truth that they want to embody and walk forward into the future with. Of course, like I mentioned, we see that in the episode Inari's courage put to the test at the end of the pain fight. We see Inari truly embody that and extend that bridge, because once the connection of Ninshu is given to you, you can then give it to others. The thing with Naruto, and Ashura and Indra being healed and Ninshu being healed, is that they're not the ones who hold it all, right? Like, Naruto doesn't just extend the bridge and then the bridge goes away, right? Like we talked about with Ashura and Indra in their respective missions for their successorship. Indra easily handled it, and that led to them fighting over it, because it was not hard won, it was not hard fought, whereas Ashura's village was hard fought, so the peace lasted. So we see this with Inari, with the villagers, right? The villagers actually all also rallied to help Inari in that moment, and even the people who kidnapped Inari and those kids, they were like, you guys were just weak a while back, what the fuck? Like, you guys grew a backbone? And it's like, yeah, they did, because they experienced love, they experienced a helping hand who could help, right? Because that's the thing with true Ninshu. To truly be a leader of Ninshu, you have to have the power and the love, right? So while these villagers had the love, they had fear because they didn't have power. But when Naruto and, Inari made them realize that they have their own sovereignty, they have their own inner power, their own autonomy, their own authority, they were able to embody this in a way that they knew how. They don't need jutsu. They don't need anything flashy. They just need themselves, what they feel is right, and their willingness to embody and walk the path. So it was not just, the villagers. It was also Naruto who had his own ninja way. Solidified, of course, a very iconic moment in the series. And then, of course, the seed of reflection, essentially, was planted in Sakura and Sasuke. And, through Naruto and everything else, like, even Kakashi, he's a fucking hardened war vet. He was like, maybe there is a different way, So, yeah, I love the Land of Waves arc. Oh, wait, actually, this is really important to mention. When we talk about the impact of the Land of Waves arc on Kakashi. So in episode 266, 265 to 266 actually, Kakashi, is fighting the reanimated Haku and Zabuza. So Kakashi talks to reanimated Haku and he says, "Zabuza never thought you were merely a tool. Naruto, he dug deep into Zabuza's heart and carved out the truth." And then at some point Zabuza said, "Kakashi, don't hesitate or hold back. Use whatever means necessary to stop me. Remember, I already died once, and I died human." So Kakashi goes to Chidori, reanimated Zabuza, and Haku jumps in the way. By the way, Kabuto's wild. I do not know if he knew about that trauma, but wow, because that's Kakashi's karma throughout the entire series. He always has people jumping in front of this Chidori. It is so traumatizing for him every time it happens. However, the important part is Kakashi has a flashback, and we don't see this until this scene, actually. It's also in the manga. But it's as they're leaving the Land of Waves on the Great Naruto Bridge. Naruto stops Kakashi, and, he says he wants to go on more A-rank missions. Kakashi says no. He can't believe they made it all out alive, Naruto looks sullen, and Kakashi says when he learns more jutsu and gets stronger, he'll get to A-rank. And Naruto says he has to find more things to protect. He talks about what Haku said. I love this scene, genuinely, because Kakashi says, "I see, and you agree with him, do you?" Right? Kakashi is not forcing a narrative on Naruto. Listen, remember how I talked about how Naruto was not indoctrinated because of the because the village ostracized him. He was not indoctrinated. Kakashi is not one to indoctrinate. Like he obviously struggled with that. I spoke about that earlier with Sakumo, and how Kakashi, of course, as such a young kid, did not understand the nuances there. So he went the exact opposite way and was like, okay, well, I'm not gonna protect the damn single comrade, right? Of course, it makes sense, especially as a kid, in such dire circumstances, dire situations, you do not understand. So I really love how Kakashi holds that space for Naruto. And I truly believe that he's probably one of the only Jonin right now, in terms of the leaders of the different teams that would do that. When I think of Kurenai, I don't really think of I don't really know if she'd let them or not push back on going sort of against this shinobi order, right? Same with Asuma, I think they would, but I'm also not sure. But I know for a fact Guy would, fuck with it, right? Guy's pretty much always the exception. But, Naruto responds, he says, "You bet. After watching Haku with Zabuza, I know he's right. Hey, wait a second, Kakashi-sensei, what do you think?" And then Kakashi says, "About what?" But it cuts back to the present time, and Kakashi watches the reanimation papers forge around the heart wound that the Chidori caused Haku. And then, of course, it cuts to Kakashi's abdomen wound that does not heal because he's not reanimated. And it cuts to the Executioner's blade reforging as it does with blood. And Kakashi, like, verbally says, "I'm glad that you two were Naruto's first adversaries." And it's so important when we talk about Kakashi to talk about how he is essentially Unk to Naruto, like, genuinely. Like, he is like a brother uncle figure to Naruto, because he is Minato, you know, and his team were also kind of like family. And then even beyond that, Kushina, she was shown making lunches for them. Like, she was very much an important figure in their team, important enough to do that, right? And then, of course, he guarded Kushina during her entire pregnancy. Anyway, as flashing back to the past convo on the Naruto Bridge again, right? Naruto says, "Well, I know that those two were our enemies and all, but you know what? Actually, well, I kind of like those guys." And he says this with a big smile. I spoke about this with the kid that asks Sakura for candy. That kid still had a smile even when, you know, the kid's starving, right? And that very much shows that they were not taught to abandon their inner child, right? And Naruto's very much in the same situation here. Kakashi was shocked, and he says, "Huh?" And Naruto hesitates, like he's scared he did something wrong. And he said, What is it? Is that weird or something?" And Kakashi laughs, and he says, "No, I feel the same way." This has to be so fucking refreshing for Kakashi. But, you know, cut the present, Kakashi Chidori's Zabuza, and Kakashi says, "The way you died and your tears, they demonstrated your bond to each other. As a shinobi, I've got plenty to protect too. Protecting the way Zabuza and Haku died is one of those things, especially since I was, and am again, their final enemy." The Executioner Blade's blood drops onto Haku's eye and streams down like a tear. Blood splattered on Haku's mirror streams down the eye of Zabuza's reflection like a tear. And then Kakashi speaks audibly. Naruto's not there, of course. Kind of rhetorically, he says, "Naruto, what do you think?" So, all in all, Hagoromo building the bridge and, you know, the solidification of Ninshu, and then the creation of the Great Naruto Bridge are the, you know, big kahunas of the bridge narrative of Ninshu, you know, in metaphorical form, right? However, I'm going to mention the other bridge mentions and portrayals, because I also feel that they are, of course, relevant, because, you know, obviously the point of Ninshu is connection between people, and that is the entire series. Like, the entire series is Ninshu regardless. So next up is the Idate arc, and the first thing I want to mention with the Idate arc is that Idate has a parallel to Naruto through Aoi having the parallel to Mizuki. Also, of course, Naruto was denied graduation at the academy, and then that is when Mizuki capitalized off of his grief and anger and, you know, his determination to just be a shinobi already, and had him steal the Scroll of Sealing so he could take it to Orochimaru. And then how Aoi parallels this is Idate actually was a ninja, however, he failed the Chunin exam because he was on the 10th question given by his brother Ibiki Morino. So Ibiki's 10th question for Idate specifically was, you know, if you choose to participate, then one of your teammates will no longer be able to test to be a Chunin. And then, of course, Idate stayed and chose to participate, and he failed. Idate, of course, also has some parallels to Indra, where Idate asks Ibiki why he failed. Idate says to Ibiki, if you're telling me to quit, then I will, but tell me why I'm not good enough. Obviously, this parallels Indra because Indra pretty much verbatim asked Hagoromo the same question. However, the fact that Idate said, if you're telling me to quit, then I will, is very interesting because that really shows that he doesn't have what it takes to be a shinobi, because he doesn't have the personal will or want to be a shinobi outside of what he's taught. And this is really important because he finds his path, he finds himself in the Wasabi family through Jirocho really accepting him. Of course, Aoi ends up capitalizing on Idate's desperation to be a chunin, right? So Aoi tells Idate if he steals the Sword of the Thunder God and the Scroll of Sealing, then he will be promoted to chunin. Aoi obviously lies, and when Idate brings the Scroll of Sealing and the Sword of the Thunder God, he's like, girl, did you really think, it'd be chill? He's rude about it, but, he's like, Aoi did it because if he presented the Sword of the Thunder God and the Scroll of Sealing to the Rain Village, he would be accepted as a jonin. Aoi in the Leaf Village was a chunin. So, byproduct, he tells Idate, if you run away with me, you'll be accepted in the Rain Village as a chunin. I'm assuming he's lying about that. I don't know if that's really true. But Ibiki chases Aoi and Idate, and Aoi tortures him in a cabin because he wants Ibiki, the Scroll of Sealing can only be deciphered by a jonin, so he's trying to get Ibiki to decipher it. Ibiki is a special jonin, just for clarification. As Aoi is torturing Ibiki, he threatens Ibiki because he obviously sees it's not getting anywhere. Ibiki is not talking, and he says he'll kill Idate if he does not decipher the Scroll of Sealing. So Ibiki says, Idate's a ninja, he doesn't fear death, to which Idate says he's given up on being a ninja and he doesn't want to die. Aoi mocks Ibiki for being loyal to the Leaf, and Ibiki says, better a dead pawn than a living traitor. You're sorry excuse for a man. Period. So Ibiki cuts Idate's ropes and tells him to run, and Ibiki sets the cabin on fire. Ibiki took back the scroll, of course, without deciphering it. This goes without saying, left Idate with lifelong trauma. So, of course, after the aftermath of that fire, Idate meets Jirocho on a bridge, right? You know where I'm going with this. Idate uses pretty much a dull kunai knife to try to rob Jirocho. Jirocho very easily disables him and throws him on the ground. Idate's stomach growls, and Jirocho gives him his ornate pocket knife, a very nice, very valuable pocket knife, and an apple. And he says, take it, and remember, kid, the blade wasn't invented for the purpose of hurting people. Jirocho introduces himself and asks Idate if he wants to live with him, and Idate is surprised, like, why would you, accept me after what I tried to do? Jirocho, of course, responds with, when a man is starving, it's easy for him to make a mistake like that, it's of no concern. Idate tries to give the blade back, but Jirocho tells him to keep it, and he says, quote, forget about it, that was a gift, keep it, but no more thieving antics, we have a deal. I really love how the depiction of a bridge very often shows thieves, because of course it's like a passageway. It's kind of like no escape on both sides, right? And I really love how Jirocho acknowledges the concept of lack mindset, right? I'm also under the impression that the Wasabi family and the Wagarashi family are intended to portray Yakuza or a gang. And, of course gangs, experience that lack mindset, that survival mentality. There are two relevant quotes, I feel, from the song Changes by Tupac. The first one is, he says, "My stomach hurts, so I'm looking for a purse to snatch." And then the second relevant quote is, "And I ain't never did a crime I ain't have to do." This is, of course, relevant in many ways, you know. A lot of people feeling pushed that they have to do crime through a lack mindset. So Jirocho, you know, where he made a gang that is more like a family, right? He sees that lack mindset that he has probably pulled a large majority of his gang out of. He sees that in Idate, and then he, of course, wants to take Idate in, and at the very least, if Idate did decline, you know, he would, you know, still, of course, wish the best for him, but, you know, to not steal. And then, of course, Idate says, "Mister, I wish to follow you. Make me your disciple. I mean, please, boss." And I love that, because Jirocho here, of course, reflects Hagoromo. Like, they're on a bridge. Idate stealing. Hell, even Futami looks a little similar to Idate, and Idate's like main characteristic that he talks about a lot is that he's very fast. And when when Futami is explaining to Hagoromo that he steals and it's his livelihood, something he says is, "I'm very fast." You know, I'm quick on my feet, and I really love that callback. And it's so funny because it's not technically a call. Actually, I don't know the intent, but those are both anime canon arcs, like spread apart years from each other. Genuinely, the construction of Naruto, both in the anime and the manga, and how the anime studio seamlessly blends the two, is it just cannot be understated. Genuinely, this is why I love the anime canon so much. It expands on the world building without removing itself from the canon. And I really love the movies, and they also expand on the world building and ninjutsu types, right? But they're a lot less canon, very obviously. Like, there's a lot of things that are just like, well, that wouldn't really work. But that's the beauty of it, is the movies get to really explore that non-canon, like, okay, how about we push it, you know, how about we push these limits? Whereas the anime canon is like, hey, let's stay within the limits, right? You know, so then, of course, Jirocho introduces himself, and he puts the umbrella over Idate's head as it is snowing, and he says, "Shall we go then, Idate?" And he takes him in, and Jirocho loves Idate. He's like, he really took him in under his wing. He's the one who was like, "I want Idate to run this race." And Idate is like fast, and it's not just because he's a shinobi. Like, he even, like, he did say before he's a shinobi that he's fast, but it's like, he's fast. Sasuke was like, what the fuck, where's this dude at, right? Like, so Jirocho, of course, is the one who tells, like, he wants Idate to run this race. And every time the rest of the gang doubts Idate, Jirocho always sticks up for him. He has unwavering faith in Idate. Jirocho says, and I quote, "Idate, the Wasabi family has complete faith in you, and I have faith in you. Isn't it time you had a little faith in yourself?" So this is a huge hurdle for Idate that he has to you know, really cross and integrate in this arc, where he doesn't, you know, he doesn't have that faith in himself. And of course he still has the PTSD from that night. And then Aoi, you know, is the shinobi hired by the Wagarashi family. Now, to give a little context, the Wasabi family and the Wagarashi family are both rival clans in the same area. Every 4 years, the Wasabi family and the Wagarashi family used to fight for the right to control Degarashi Port. That fighting that, you know, got citizens involved eventually turned into, or was incorporated into, the already existing Todoroki Shrine race. The Wagarashi family is like a pretty belligerent gang. Like, they're not nice, whereas the Wasabi family is nice. very chivalrous, right? I don't really know Yakuza customs or anything, but I do of course know that, or at least it's been portrayed that there are like you know, I hate the whole good bad thing, but good, you know, like chivalrous and doesn't hurt people, you know, takes care of their own versus like, you know, anything to get a leg up, right? So Wagarashi family is very much anything to get a leg up, and Wasabi family is very much like, you know, we don't discriminate, we take care of our own, it doesn't matter, right? So the Wagarashi family starts getting out of line, and they start like attacking different shop owners, to which Sasuke really put the whooping on some of them motherfuckers, and they ran. So this shows that before the Todoroki race, the tensions are very high with the Wasabi and the Wagarashi family. Of course, like I said, the Wagarashi family hired Aoi to accompany Fukusuke, and the Wasabi family hired Team 7 to accompany Idate. Throughout the beginning of this race, Idate very much does not want to work with the ninja that were hired by Jirocho. He starts off with looking at the rain clouds and then running in the complete different direction from where everybody thought he was supposed to go, because they're supposed to run and then board a boat and then ride the boat to another island and then finish the race. So Idate's going the wrong way, and Naruto and everybody chase after him, and they're like, you're going the wrong way, and Idate's like, girl, they don't know shit, right? But he's not verbalizing what he's feeling. It ends up that him going the wrong way is actually the right way, because what the clouds told him is that if he went that way, the sea would be very hectic, right? So when they're on the boat, they get ambushed by the 3 rain ninja in the Chunin exams. Of course, if you know, you know. He does not trust Team 7 because he doesn't trust ninja. At one point, Naruto saves him when he's about to fall off a cliff under a genjutsu, and Idate yells at him, and he's like, you know, you're only doing this because, you know, you only saved me because you're bound to by duty. There's no need for me to thank you. And it's not about the thank you, it's about the collaboration, you know, the teamwork, right? So anyway, back to this boat. The rain ninjas start a fire on the ship, or on the boat, really. And Idate, of course, has PTSD with fire, so he's having like flashbacks of Ibiki. He thinks that Ibiki is dead, or maybe they talked about Ibiki and said he's not dead. I don't really remember the exact timeline, but he still has not healed that wound that he has. Team 7 tell Idate to jump off the boat and swim, and they'll be right behind him, but he thinks that, because he doesn't trust ninja, he thinks that they're trying to use him as a decoy. Sakura gets hurt trying to protect him, and then he finally does swim away. The rain ninja then attack Team 7 underwater, and then there's the iconic scene of Naruto using shadow clones and multiple Rasengan to create, you know, an underwater vortex and defeat the rain ninja. As Idate swims ashore, Aoi, you know, confronts him, and he grabs onto the knife that Jirocho gave him. And I really love this scene because the knife for Idate is the headband for Naruto, right? Naruto's headband, of course, as a ninja of the Hidden Leaf Village, gives him a sense of belonging. It is the personification, and like, you know, an object that personifies his personal path, right? His integrity, his Ninshu, his dream. Also, of course, it is very important to mention that Naruto's whole headband, his entire headband, is Iruka's. Like, Iruka gave him his headband. Like, his headband is so important to him. So Iruka was the first person that genuinely saw Naruto as Naruto. And well, of course, if you don't count Hiruzen, you know, people who know certain things, right? But like, Iruka was genuinely the first person besides all that to like meet him there, right? Anti-Uchi girl. But, you know, Idate's Iruka is Jirocho. So him, you know, really holding on to that knife like nothing else matters, you know, that is of course so significant. Aoi says, and I quote, "You fool, were you hoping to show the world you're a man of integrity?" as he steps on the hand that is holding the knife. Aoi still holds Idate to this past version of himself, and even though he still, of course, has not, at this point in time, completely healed from his trauma, he is still not the past version of him. We all have, like, we will all be on a healing journey the rest of our lives, right? Everybody will always have something to heal. Like, there, it's never really over. So even if, like I said, Idate still has those things to heal, he's still not the Idate that he used to be, right? I think it's important to talk about that when we talk about the obstruction of Ninshu, the obstruction of the path. And of course, in this arc, narratively, Aoi and the Wagarashi family are both the obstruction, like, they both are the narrative obstruction of Ninshu, of the path, right? You have to give others grace and yourself grace, just in general, where it's like you can always choose your path, you can always choose what you want to be, you can always choose what's important to you. And Idate, being a ninja was not the path for him, and he did think that was like it for him, right? Like, what else do I do? So he steals on a bridge, and then he finds this completely new family, he finds this new path, he finds something that sparks joy and passion and purpose in him, right? That he didn't get out of being a ninja. And neither is bad or better than the other. It is just personal, right? It's unique. It's just integral to your own path. Nobody can choose that for you. So, of course, they're in a little cave, and, Idate tells everybody that whole story, right? Like, why are you scared? We need to know, right? Like, we need to know what's going on if we're going to help you. And, he tells the whole story about Aoi and, everything like that. And then, of course, Naruto remembers Mizuki and Iruka. And when Idate says he'd be better off dead, Naruto replied, "You just said it yourself. You still got one person who believes in you, right? One person is enough. That's all anyone needs. Don't even think of quitting. Who says this race is over? You have no way of knowing how things are going to turn out." And I would like to interject here and say, even if that one person is yourself, like, that's enough. You know what I mean? Like, it is so important to acknowledge that not everybody has connection, and that's okay. That doesn't mean you're broken or anything. Like, I mean, hell, I'm in that boat right now, right? But he is lucky enough to have one person outside of himself. So, of course, Naruto's, yelling at Idate, right? Like, pepping him up, girl, because that's what he does. He's like, "You're not quitting, understand? Jirocho's counting on you, and you don't want to keep him waiting. Pull yourself together." So it cuts to the Wasabi family, and one of the gang members, or, the family members, right? They say, "It's starting to look like he just ran off, isn't it, boss?" And Jirocho says, "He'll come. I trust Idate." He never wavers with Idate, ever. Like he just worries about him, but he doesn't question his loyalty. So it cuts back to Naruto, and he says, "You quit now? When you finally have the chance you've been waiting for your whole life? To show someone he was right to depend on you? To believe in you?" And then, of course, Idate remembers Jirocho, and he also remembers the old man who lent him the boat, the area that he diverged, he ran another way and, had this boat prepared. And those two people believed in him to win this race. Because, of course, it really does not benefit anyone for the Wagarashi family to continue their reign, right? They are hurting people actively all the time. I really love this too, because earlier I talked about projection and how everybody projects to some extent because, we live in our head, we have our own experiences to talk about. And there is projection where it's like, kind of maybe the more quote-unquote negative sense where, it's like with Inari telling Naruto, like, these fancy words, they don't help, like, you are gonna die, right? Like, that obviously seems, pretty harsh, but he didn't mean it in that way. He was actually just wanting to protect Team 7, like, and then he was, of course, just remembering Kaisa's words, and how, in that moment he's really talking to his father, who he can't speak to anymore. So I really love this, where it's like, projection can be kind of positive or hopeful as well. where he's like, you know, you're gonna quit now when you finally have the chance you've been waiting for your whole life to show someone who's right to depend on you, to believe in you. Like, it's like, that's probably something he's told himself a lot. Like, of course, like I mentioned, Iruka and Jirocho both parallel each other in terms of Naruto and Idate's life. And it's really important for Naruto to make sure that, you know, through Ninshu, of course, that people don't waste vital opportunities like this, right? If there's something you wanted your whole life, it's like, you have the opportunity right now. Do not abandon yourself. So in terms of the bridge, there is another scene I would like to mention. And Fukusuke is the rival runner in this race, the runner for the Wagarashi family, right? And he's pretty laid back about all this, you know, in sort of the tortoise and the hare style. Like, he takes a break, a very long break where he eats and drinks with like 2 women in his arm, and, you know, that shows the lack of discipline and tact of the Wagarashi family, because he does truly believe that Aoi will take care of it, which Aoi is technically a jonin, but it's not an earned position. And then, of course, there are 3 Chunin, three Genin, also on this mission. So anyway, Fukusuke finally gets up from his little break, and they're at a string bridge. Fukusuke like starts talking shit to Aoi, and he says he's worthless. Aoi chokes him and says, "Listen, I'm here helping you because I have to. It's my duty." Take it back to what Idate said earlier, you know, I don't have to thank you, it's your fucking duty, right? Like, he genuinely thought that that's how all shinobi were, because honestly, his last experience with a shinobi was Aoi. Aoi has that, you know, concept, right? He has that mindset. So he also says, "But one more little quack like that and I'll break you in half." And then Fukusuke crosses the bridge, and Aoi cuts the ropes to the bridge when Fukusuke crosses. So Team 7 catch up, and of course so does Idate. And Sasuke starts fighting Aoi. And oh my god, Aoi mocks Sasuke and says he's a hopeless loser unworthy of his family name. Holy fucking shit. Like, this is really why I love anime canon, because this arc ties so well into the next episode, you know, the next arc, where it's like, you know, they fight on the rooftop and then he leaves. Like, this is in the anime fuel for Sasuke. Like, you know, when he's on the rooftop, he remembers this. He remembers what Aoi said, and he remembers Naruto creating the vortex underwater of the Rasengan, you know, with the Rasengan, right? To defeat the 3 hidden rain village Genin. So anyway, he uses Chidori on the sword of the Thunder God. He cracks it a little. He says, "I'm Sasuke of the Leaf Village, the last of the Uchiha." He gets thrown onto the breaking bridge, and Sakura and Sasuke fall off the broken bridge, right? Because when Aoi cut the ropes earlier, it didn't quite break, but then of course it broke, and just completely broke. Actually, no, it didn't. But it did break. Wait, fuck. Okay, so it didn't break, but they did fall off of it, right? Like, but it's not really crossable, you know what I mean? Like, it's they're gonna have to repair that. They're gonna have to repair that. Naruto notices that Sasuke created a crack in the sword, and he said, "Sasuke gave me this chance, and I'm not gonna waste it." And like I said, I really like that, because Sasuke, when he remembers this mission, he remembers what he wasn't able to do. I don't even think he knows that the sword was cracked, right? But it's like Naruto never, ever thinks that people are useless, like thinks that people are dead weight, right? If anything, he only has like that lens of perception on himself, like, did I do enough, right? But that's an issue with Sasuke's insecurity, of course, but I digress, girl. So he beats Aoi by using Rasengan on the crack in the sword, and then Idate and Naruto get on the rope of the bridge, and Idate, you know, as they're hanging on the rope, because they're going to cut it to go to the other side, so as they're hanging on the rope of the bridge, Idate says, I never thought that highly of myself. But even when I didn't, Boss Jirocho always put his faith in me. That never happened before. No one ever trusted me with anything. That's exactly why I wanted to win this race for him no matter what was standing in my way. But it turns out just wanting it wasn't enough. There were so many times I almost lost hope, but whenever that happened, you guys risked your lives for me, no matter how useless I had become. Naruto, forgive me. I should have trusted you guys right from the beginning. And then Naruto, being Naruto, says, so what are you telling me this is now for? Save that kind of stuff for after you cross the finish line. I relate to that so much, where it's like, I feel like most of my life, like, people just kind of felt like I was useless, and then I had to, prove, that I can do something, that I'm useful, right? And then that put me in, like, just such a bad position for so many years. And I really love that Jirocho really gave him this opportunity, and he was able to prove to himself and to Jirocho. But Jirocho always knew, right? He doesn't need to prove it to him, but he did prove it to himself. He proved that he can do it, and through this, he actually found his own path. Like, I really love the scene when the race first started, when Idate goes the other way, like I said, the wrong way, quote unquote, because he notices that the cloud formations are coming in a certain way, to where if he were to leave from that port, it would have been more turbulent at sea. So his path actually was the right path, and that's really the point. That's all we can hope for, is as we continue to walk our path, to have the fruits of our labor really be acknowledged. I just feel like that's such a good metaphor for what he chose, which is like, he's like, I don't want to be a shinobi. I really want to belong to this family, and I do, and I don't have to prove it, but I proved to myself through the action that I took. So at this point, to cut the rope to go to the other side, right, and climb up the cliff, Idate hands Naruto his pocket knife, right? And this is so precious to him. So it really shows that he trusts Naruto as like a genuine team member, a genuine comrade. He crosses the finish line before Fukusuke, and Jirocho, of course, welcomes him with open arms. The minister of the feudal lord points out that Idate rode on Naruto's back. I do think I said earlier that this is against the rules, but I misremembered. It's not against the rules. The feudal lord said there is no such rule, but he pointed out that the Wagarashi family's bribery, with the minister, is not chill. So he fired the minister and ordered him to don a monk's robe, and he disbanded the Wagarashi family. So of course the Degadashi port is free from their tyranny, right? And then when the mission is finished and they leave, and the boat comes and they're about to depart, Ibiki shows up, and he's like, bring the wounded, right? And Idate says, big brother, hold on. I love this scene, by the way. Ibiki says, who are you? Only one person called me that, and he died 3 years ago. Idate, he's thinking this. He does not, verbalize this, but he says, big brother, I figured out the answer to the 10th question. I'll never betray a comrade again. I know what it means now to trust in others. And then Ibiki, thinks you've grown up well. And then, they all bid farewell. And as they're riding back on the boat, Ibiki's thinking, and he, about Naruto, looking at Naruto, and he says, always interesting, this kid. It's no wonder the 5th Hokage is taking a shine to him. I love it. It's just so good, like with generational trauma healing, right? Like, for Ibiki to witness that Idate has come into his own, because Ibiki wasn't really able to meet Idate on that level, right? He wasn't able to guide him properly, right? Like in a way that Idate needs, because Idate's path was not meant to be a shinobi. It was meant to be, what he is, which, he's a runner, and, he pays attention to the weather patterns, and, he's in the Wasabi family, right? Like, this is so important to him in his own path, right? So he not only knows the answer to the 10th question, but now he knows and embodies his own path, and what a beautiful thing that is. So to sum it up, of course, Idate's Ninshu connection the bridge of connection was made with Team 7, was made with the Wasabi family after he ran away from the Hidden Leaf Village, and he realized that, that path is not for him. And, he made a mistake to run away, of course. Like, he trusted somebody he shouldn't have. He was taken advantage of in that way. But it was, he also could have went back to the Leaf Village. He was scared, though, and that's an important point. And Jirocho, he didn't evoke that fear out of him. He's like, I'll protect you, right? Like, with the knife and the apple and the umbrella, and, trusting in him, right? So, invaluable Ninshu connection here. And then, of course, Aoi and the Wagarashi family they attempt to obstruct the path of Ninshu, to which, of course, the minister of the feudal lord is colluding with the Wagarashi family. So, his punishment is to don a monk's robe. Hopefully he learns Ninshu as he does this, right? And then the Wagarashi family is just disbanded. So that is the destruction of the hatred and oppression that seeks to obstruct, right? So, of course, at the end, Idate accepts his personal path, similar to, Naruto's ninja way, right? And then he, of course, also discovers the answer to the 10th question, which is genuine camaraderie, because he was operating from a mindset of fear, right? Of lack of survival. Still, even though he was accepted, like he still has not healed that until this arc, right? Now I want to talk about Kannabi Bridge, and this should be shorter than the others. I'm not sure. I think it's just like everybody knows, what's there to be said about it. But I first want to start by talking about the meaning of the name. So Kannabi Bridge means, apparently, bridge where the gods do not help. And I think that is so just fitting for that arc, right? Of course, Kannabi Bridge is the arc where, Obito, quote unquote, died by the rock, and, just that entire mission, right? So in this arc, of course, Kakashi was promoted to Jonin, and he was going to be the leader. And they actually had to go off mission because Rin was kidnapped. But Obito didn't want to stay on mission like Kakashi ordered. So Obito was like, no, I don't care. I'm going to go get Rin, right? Kakashi comes along. They fight. Obito, as he says, he doesn't care about the mission and he's going to save Rin. He talks about Sakamo, and he's like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I think the White Fang of the Leaf is a hero. And that's so important, because I really talked about Kakashi's trauma earlier, where that's pretty much all he needed to hear. Like, he would not have, I don't think he would have suffered as much, I feel, if he heard that sooner. He felt that, what his father did stained his honor, and he felt that, as the surviving family member of his father, he had to do what his father couldn't. And then, of course, this led to the very same people who would, chastise his father, being too scared to work with Kakashi. I believe, I could be wrong on the timing, but I believe that's why he was forced to join Team Minato, right? Because bigger missions, like the Shinobi, were like, I don't trust him. Like, I can't, be on a life or death mission with him, right? So Obito, really said the words that he needed to hear. And, the whole, like, I'll protect, a comrade, even if it means giving my life, right? He says this all the time, and really that's from Obito, right? That's from Obito's Ninshu, his own personal path, right? So Obito, quote unquote, dies, and Kakashi inherits his Sharingan, and he really steps into the future with his own ninja way after this, right? It's his own path, and it's because Obito taught him so much just by acknowledging his pain. Like, that's really all he needed. And, another reason that I really like that the Kannabi Bridge means bridge where the gods do not help is because two obstructors of Ninshu really came from this. So Madara obstructed Ninshu through the orchestration of the death of Rin, and having Obito witness through, Kakashi's eyes killing Rin, right? Like, come on. So Madara orchestrated all of that, like, just fucking all of that, like, through the hidden Miss Ninja, kidnapping Rin and implanting Isobu into her, etc., etc. So then, from that, Obito, since he dons the moniker of Madara, he also obstructs Ninshu. He actually does the exact... So, by the way, of course, until the war, he doesn't even know that Madara did this, right? He does not know that Madara set this all up. He does not know that Madara is the reason that Rin's dead. But, even if he doesn't know this, right, he dons the moniker of Madara, right? The name of Madara, right? And he even, like, verbally says that he's going to groom Nagato, right? To, because he has a use for him with the Rinnegan and everything, right? That's kind of the point. That's another thing that Madara really obstructed, right? And, there's, of course, that one scene where the entirety of the Akatsuki, with the meeting, because that's the thing, is, like, Obito actually did not orchestrate Danzo with Hanzo as Nagato, Konan, and Yahiko meet them, right? That was not orchestrated by Obito. But the Akatsuki, like the rest of them, the original Akatsuki, right? They were all going to back Nagato up, the Akatsuki, right? And Obito killed them all. Like, he was dead ass, like, well, he felt that he didn't even need to do it, but he wanted to, quote-unquote, speed up Nagato's realization of, I don't know, the futility of fighting, the futility of this world, right? So, all of that really comes from Kannabi Bridge, and to my knowledge, I don't know if the bridge was actually shown, and if it was probably just a little bit, because it's like, the bridge was not the important part of, the Kannabi Bridge arc, but it was. Like, bridge where the gods do not help. It's not shown. So much obstruction of Ninshu comes from this arc, right? Like, that's the important part, is that it's not shown, because there were so many bridges of connection that were lost. I mean, hell, if we even look at, like, Minato's side of things, he killed 1,000 stone shinobi. Like, in Shippuden, Onoki is chastised by the rest of the Kage, which I, of course, really do think is valid. But, he's chastised because the rest of the Kage are like, you're the only one really hiring the Akatsuki out here. But when you kill 1,000 shinobi, because like, that's the thing, is like, the hidden stone wasn't really ever like that big or that powerful, right? So in killing 1,000 shinobi, it's like he really stunted the growth of future shinobi. It's like there's only, it will take generations. If you've watched Boruto, you've seen, of course you've seen the hidden stone arc. And how important that is. And, Onoki, very old, very senile, grieving the death of his grandson. And, he colludes with a mad scientist to actually kidnap, like, Mitsuki. Like, he is, like, this was an international dispute. The only reason they don't do anything about it is because he finds, you guessed it, Ninshu at the end, right? He finds that bridge. He comes back to himself. He comes back to his path, right? But anyway, the whole thing with the Hidden Stone, in Boruto specifically, is he's wanting to create artificial humans because if we can create, like, his whole concept is like, if we can create artificial humans to fight in place of shinobi, then young shinobi would not have to die. And it's like true, but it's also like not true, right? And that's his whole thing with like what is a human, what is consciousness, and how he's pretty much creating life to hurt it. And that arc is so beautiful, but it's so dark, and really that demon and Onoki's obstruction of Ninshu at that point, honestly, does come from Minato killing 1,000 shinobi, right? Because obviously, like, any of the villages, if it was like citizens, like shinobi and citizens, right, that would be a huge loss. But for pure shinobi, it's like they are suffering from that loss even in Boruto, right? So now we move into the Tenchi Bridge, and to set the scene, Yamato joins Team 7 because of Kakashi's, injury. He has to recover from the Kazekage rescue mission, and both Danzo and Tsunade choose one Anbu member each to join the team. So Tsunade from the Hokage Anbu, she chooses Yamato, and Danzo from the Root Anbu, he chooses Sai. So Sai joins, and he of course wants to provoke Naruto. I think everybody just wants to provoke Naruto, and that's really like just such Naruto's love language, is he just loves to banter. So it's really funny because it's like he'll start so many connections off with just bantering and just getting angry, and then they'll get angry and then they'll yell back or whatever, and then they're like best friends by the end of it. But Sai has a lot of conflict with Team 7, and he says a lot of things that provoke both Sakura and Naruto. He has an issue with fake smiling. He doesn't know how to actually smile. He doesn't name his paintings or anything. He says he does not feel emotion. He states at one point, like, if my brother died, if I had emotions, would I have looked like Naruto does when he thinks about Sasuke? And then this scares, unnerves Team 7. So that kind of sets the scene, of course. And when they get to the Tenchi Bridge and they confront they think they're meeting just a double agent for sorcery, but they end up finding out that quote-unquote double agent is Kabuto, and Orochimaru is also there. So of course Naruto's hatred, Naruto's anger, right, triggers the awakening of the Nine Tails, and he doesn't try to hold it back, and that's really important here. He destroys the bridge in the process, which I really like narratively, because of course it's like his hatred and his anger and his unwillingness to control it, right, to not let it control him. That is what obstructs his path. That is what destroys the bridge. So then he fights Orochimaru. He really kind of beats his ass there. Sakura falls off the bridge, and Sai refuses to catch her. And I really love this because it's like the destruction of the bridge. It's like nobody is in sync here. Nobody is connected through Ninshu. Even Yamato, he doesn't really. He has of course, we all know his backstory. He has very little human interaction and human connection, right? Like, he's just, he never really had the opportunity, and he's just also kind of like, not like that, right? He's very duty bound. I mentioned earlier how a lot of the times Kakashi will just kind of let Naruto act on his own, even if he shouldn't, but very rarely will he be like, hey, like, you need to actually not act on your own now. Yamato is very much not like that. Like, even if it would be the best decision, he will not only not let him act on his own, but he will still punish him if acting on his own saved everybody. And that, of course, makes sense. He grew up, like, partially in the Root Anbu and then partially in the Hokage Anbu, and he doesn't feel like he has a place outside of it. So everybody's out of sync, and later Yamato tells Naruto that he hurt Sakura and she won't talk about it, and that is when Naruto realizes that really giving into his hatred and not trying to control it, or not letting it control him, hurt somebody that he really loves. He really cares about her, right? He doesn't want to hurt anybody, right? So he's like, I don't really care if I need that power, because I don't need it and I'll get it on my own. Like, he truly realizes that he obstructed his own path. He obstructed his own Ninshu. And, his motto, like, there's no shortcut to becoming Hokage, right? He doesn't want to take that. Hatred would be the shortcut if he gave into it. So, of course, the entire rest of the arc, Sai goes to, he defects to Orochimaru at the order of Danzo, and eventually, like, because he's been touched by Ninshu, right? Like, he genuinely has that bridge of connection. He's like, I don't know, like, I can't shake it. Like, Sasuke, what's up? Like, he tries to talk to Sasuke, and Sasuke, he's trying to run away from it all because, he feels that he can't, hang out, or, he can't go back to the Leaf. He can't do that because he feels that he has to take the more forbidden route to get strong enough to fight Itachi, right? So, at the end of that arc, Sai's bridge of Ninshu, his connection with Team 7 is solidified. He even asks Danzo if he can stay in the team, and Danzo's like, well, I think that'd be a good idea because you report back to me. And Sai does report back to him very regularly. He does say this later, and I really love this, because when he admits this to Team 7 later, they're chill about it, like, because they're like, well, you're Sai, like, they trust Sai. They have that bridge of connection, that Ninshu connection. They have that with Sai. So it's like, well, okay, you were a double agent, and, we didn't really know the underlying political system, they didn't really know about, like, Foundation route and stuff like that. And it's like, we still accept you, even if, he feels like, uneasy about it, because it's like, they didn't even know that about him. They just know he's Sai. It doesn't matter, right? And then, of course, he similar to Hagoromo, really, he spends his later years, right, after the war, quote-unquote, atoning for this, right? Like, he really tries to welcome in people that want to break away and break free from the brainwashing of Danzo, because he understands this firsthand. He was simultaneously living with the brainwashing of Danzo and living with the Ninshu connection with Team 7, right? So, back to, Sai never naming his paintings. It's such a beautiful moment at the end of this arc where you look at his wall, and you look at all the paintings on his wall, and they have a nameplate and no name, right? And then they're like, hey, Sai, we gotta go for a mission or whatever. They're yelling that out the window. And he's like, okay, I'm on my way. So it ends with Sai jumping out the window and standing with them outside the window. And then that scene gets into a painting. And then it has the scroll where he wrote comrade, because Naruto was like, you don't even know what the meaning of the word comrade is, do you? And Sai, being a cheeky little shit, he writes it, and he's like, yeah, it's spelled like this, right? And that became the title of the painting, right? That painting is the solidification of the Ninshu connection, right? So the next arc that I want to talk about in terms of the bridge is the Sasuke versus Danzo fight. So Sasuke targets Danzo at the 5 Kage Summit, and Danzo flees. Sasuke tracks Danzo down to the bridge, and he actually kills him several times, of course, we all know. But Danzo, he's a, and he's saying some crazy shit during this, by the way. But he's saying some evil shit, really. But Danzo, he's about to have his eye stolen or whatever. He takes his own life by triggering a seal that would explode, right, and take everything with it. So as he dies and he disappears or whatever the fuck, he takes a chunk of the bridge with him. Like there's just a chunk of the bridge that is no more. And I really like this because partially Danzo is, of course, representative of the hatred that obstructs the path, the hatred that obstructs Ninshu. But also, he has a really beautiful death scene. I have cried at this death scene every time I've seen it, and it wasn't even until like a few rewatches ago that I actually watched it for the first time, because I mostly skipped that arc when I first saw it, and then I just never watched again or that fight, because it was so angering, right? It was so, you know, the level of disgust that I felt when I first saw that arm of Sharingan and, you know, everything he said, you know. But then once I watched it and the subsequent rewatches, I cried every time he died, and it's so beautiful, because it's like, I feel like he truly bridged the gap of Ninshu with Hiruzen in that moment, because the entire concept, or like a huge part of Danzo's journey, is his inferiority complex when it comes to Hiruzen, right? And this is what I talked about with projection earlier, and this is he's a very good example of projection of the worst kind, where it's like, you know, truly the worst kind, where, you know, him copying the Blood Mist Village, where people have to kill, you know, they have to grow up with a friend and kill that friend, right, to you know, get some type of power. For one, he's actually emulating what Black Zetsu defiled when it comes to Indra's descendants and Indra's reincarnations, right? He's emulating that. That's not actually how that works, right? But for two, he's also projecting in terms of, like, you know, his ego and what he feels like he wants, even if it's not what he wants, because it's not what he wants. He's projecting him and Hiruzen's relationship into these children that he's making kill each other. Because an important thing to note about Danzo is that he specifically got injections with Hashirama's cells, you know, or like, you know, he got it in, not injections, but he got Hashirama cells into him, so he can not only use, like, Izanagi a million times, but so he can decrease the interval time between Kotoa Matsukami, which is Shisui's genjutsu, right? So when we take that into account, we acknowledge that he could have genjutsu'd a lot of people, and he probably has, but one of them being Hiruzen, and that is a threshold that he never wanted to cross. He never wanted to use that type of power against Hiruzen, even if he could, because he wanted to win in a way that he felt is righteous, right? He wanted to, similar to how Sasuke never even tried to genjutsu Naruto, right? It's like, of course he couldn't because of Kurama, at least at a certain point, but he never tried because that's not a way in which he would want to win against Naruto, right? Like, he still has his integrity. This is the same can be said with Danzo. So he's essentially living vicariously through these kids that he's having kill each other, and he's fucking raising together, right? But anyway, as Danzo dies, he says, Hiruzen, it's my turn next. And then he remembers Hiruzen's death, and how when Hiruzen dies, he says, where the tree leaves dance, one shall find flames. The fire shadow will illuminate the village, and once again tree leaves shall bud anew. Danzo says, just as you gave your life to protect the Hidden Leaf village, this time I will too. I will stop them. In the end, I never got to be Hokage. No matter how far I ran, I could never catch up to you. And then, girl, I'm about to cry. The afterlife image of Danzo and Hiruzen playing. And the tree leaves falling on the river surface. Oh god. And Danzo says, you were a tree leaf upon which light shone. I was nothing but a foundation hidden in darkness. So what do you think of me, Hiruzen? What was I to you? Oh my god. What a beautiful, oh my god. Girl, I gotta chill. So, of course it goes without saying, not technically giving up his life to protect the Hindley village, of course. Like, that's a part of Danzo's character, is like during the pain fight, even his Anbu were like, hey, we're gonna like join this fight, right? And Danzo was like, no. And they're like, what the fuck, are you sure? Like, you know, that's kind of the point, is like Danzo never wanted to, or at least he felt like it wasn't necessary to join fights, right? Like, he could have joined the fight against Orochimaru destroying the Leaf Village, and then of course he could have joined the fight with Pain destroying the Leaf Village, and he didn't. and this is a very important factor to consider when we think about Danzo dying on the bridge, and Danzo dying as one who obstructs Ninshu, right? One who obstructs the personal path. What's so important about this is when we look back to like early Naruto tells Konohamaru that there's no shortcuts to becoming Hokage, right? This is such an integral part of the series. Even when he's like, you know, Naruto's like, I'll become Hokage and everyone will have to look up to me, right? And then Itachi, you know, talks to him and he's like, you know, actually, people have to look up to you for you to be accepted as Hokage, right? And of course Naruto embodies this throughout the entire series, where it's like, you know, he is creating these bridges of Ninshu with other people because that's what's right? Like that's what is his own personal path. This is important to him. Like, he has Naruto has literally like taken commissions, right? Like, gotten these missions and done way fucking more than he was either paid to do or he was like supposed to do, right? Like, he has really went above and beyond. Like, it's kind of funny to think about like how often that happens, where it's like he takes like a fucking C rank, or yeah, like a fucking C rank, D rank mission, and it turns into like a fucking A rank mission, right? Like, he's not getting paid for that. Like, he's just doing that, right? Like, I assume that is not as common as Naruto makes it seem. Like, because he genuinely cares about people. He genuinely cares about bridging the gap. He genuinely cares about the Ninshu connections, right? So, you know, we look at Danzo, who's like, he has the manpower. Even the Anbu, who are like genuinely brainwashed. Like, he genuinely brainwashes them, and if they sort of operate outside of that brainwashing, he'll go redo the brainwashing, right? Like, even they were like, girl, like, we are not joining this fight, really? You know, so it's like he really tried to become take the shortcut. It's like, I'm assuming most people like heard like Danzo Shimada is gonna be Hokage, and they're like, who the fuck is that? Like, what? Like, even of course the people at the 5 Kage Summit did not accept it. I don't know if they would have accepted it outside of if he did not use Kotoa Matsukami. I'm not sure. That's up for interpretation. I don't think so, because it's like everyone's like, who the fuck are you? You know what I mean? It's like he just genuinely like does not come out from you know, underneath the, you know, from the foundation, right, from the root. Like, he doesn't leave, and that's an important part, where it's like, if you cannot walk alongside your people, how can you stand like sort of above them, right? It's you know, all the underhanded tactics and everything, right? Like, but nonetheless, I really do like how he genuinely at the end did bridge the gap to Hiruzen, and he acknowledges that, you know, he said, no matter how far I ran, I could never catch up to you. And that's something that so many people deal with, right? Like, I dealt with this concept very recently, where I realized I put somebody who was close in my life on a pedestal, right? And you're not really, you know, you shouldn't really do that, right? But after I healed that, and I was like, why did I put them on a pedestal, right? I healed the version of me that puts people on pedestals, for one. You know, it's like I only, like, you know, I acknowledge myself like that for now. And you know, it's like a lot of the times when you perceive somebody running ahead of you, and you know, you can't catch up, that's not really the reality. A lot of that, for Danzo specifically, is self-inflicted. There are a lot of things that he could have done outside of route, right? he didn't even really need root. Like, he could have really just done more if he had not use those underhanded tactics, and it's really such a shame. But I really love that at the end he really did establish that Ninshu connection with Hiruzen, and it's also really important that that was really the only time he was going to establish that Ninshu connection. If he was able to live, he wouldn't have established that Ninshu connection. He was very set in his ways. It was not until the end when he realized the futility of his ways, right? His death, was necessary because he really did obstruct Ninshu. The majority of really anything that went wrong in the shinobi world can, to some extent, be linked back to Danzo, right? The death of Yahiko? Like, come on, like, what the hell? So, after the death of Danzo, of course, Sakura comes to kill Sasuke, and Sasuke tries to kill Sakura, and then Kakashi comes, and Sasuke tries to kill Kakashi, and then he tries to kill Sakura again, and then Naruto comes, right? So there's that whole, moment, right? And this was so beautiful because it truly calls back to the final valley, the first final valley, of course, where Sasuke was like, did you know, it's said that when two shinobi of equal, like, high rank, right, when they connect fists, when they clash, they could see into each other's soul. So this, of course, is Ninshu, right? Like, that is Ninshu, because it's like power and love, and all that. They have the Ninshu plane, which, of course, I mean, that's what I call it. I don't know if there's a term for it, but it's the plane where, when people meet in the mind, there's like stars and shit, and then there's different, colors for different people. So, Minato's is like a type of gold, and then I think Obito's was like blue or whatever, right? So as they, collide fists here, they meet in that Ninshu plane, right? And then, Naruto talks about that, and he's like, if we fight, we will die. And, I really love, of course, the iconic line, I'll bear the burden of your hatred and die with you. It's like he really was ready to, like, heal it all, girl. Like, and he accepted him for it all, because this is the point where he has an international hit list, like, he's wanted, like, dead or alive, right? It doesn't matter. He has a bounty on his head, right? That's actually originally why Sakura came to kill him. Like, that's one of the reasons, right? And everybody's like, we gotta kill this fucking Uchiha, and Naruto's the only one who's like, I'm not fucking doing that. Right? And then this really ties back into Naruto's personal path, where it's like, I'm not going to do something that I'm told to do if I feel like I should not do it, right? This is my path. Like, I will not let the shinobi system convince me that I should do something I refuse to do. Then I want to mention Madara and Hashirama, and Madara and Hashirama, actually their story I don't think included a bridge, but that's kind of the point that I want to talk about. So they originally met across water. I think they actually met, Hashirama was on his side of the lake, but every time that they met subsequently, they would meet across the lake. There's that iconic, they would always skip stones, and then one of the times in which they skipped stones, it was like a warning that their family was coming, because they were from, of course, rival clans, the Senju and the Uchiha. So they eventually build the Hidden Leaf together, and they construct the ideal world, right? Everybody followed suit after the Hidden Leaf villages, like, oh shit, we could do that. But also because they felt that if the Hidden Leaf village had, quote unquote, like, that much power, right, if they had like a whole military of people coming together, like, maybe they'll come hurt us. But that's also the point, is like, the Hidden Leaf village was not constructed with that in mind. It was specifically obviously constructed with peacefully living together in mind, right? So I could be wrong. I do not know if this was stated anywhere. If it wasn't, then I just headcanon it as so. But I think that the final valley, is where Hashirama and Madara met. It has no bridge, but it is, separated, right? It's like a lake or a river or whatever the fuck, and it's got a waterfall, right? So it has no bridge, and Naruto and Sasuke fight there, 2 times, right? So the first time, Sasuke actually talks about it, like, you know what this place is, like, you know the significance of it, Madara Hashirama. And I really love this because I remember I was like, like, he's naming these, like, when I first watched it, I was like, he's naming these people, like, by name. Like, are they gonna be relevant later? Girl, you did not know. You were not ready. But, at the final valley fight, when Naruto and Sasuke really have that big clash, before the sort of round of taijutsu. They knock the statues down, right? And then they have that round of taijutsu, and then they have the final Chidori and the final Rasengan, right? And as they collide, their arms explode. And they, lay there in the pool of their own blood from their amputated arms. And the blood actually pulls down into them touching their hands. So they're like, oh yes, so I said 2 blood oaths, and that is true. The first blood oath Naruto did is the blood oath before the land of, technically in the land of waves, and then the second blood oath that he did is with Hinata's blood, vowing to win against Neji. But this was not a blood oath, but it was a blood connection. And they were doing the unison sign, and their blood was connecting, so they were in turn connecting through Ninshu, through blood, right? Like and then they of course also had that near death, like they actually were kind of suspended in a state of death for a second, like they really did die, seemingly, right? So I really love this because as they were experiencing this, Sasuke experienced like just all of Naruto's memories, like all of it, like everything that he went to up until now, and he truly acknowledged it. And this led to him gaining the Sharingan ability to read memories, right? Base Sharingan ability, he can read people's memories. He can use that Sharingan to read their memories. And I really like that because that is when he got that ability, right? So for one, the healing of Indra and Ashura, and then for 2, the Ninshu / blood connection with Naruto, and truly seeing Naruto for who he is, and seeing everything that he went through and how he never gave up. And he's like, oh shit, like, as I was on my own journey, I didn't even think that you could be on a journey this vast, this incredible, right? And then he had that moment where, he's looking at his younger self, and, he's looking at his brother, and, he's really experiencing this ego death. Like, I even had, a moment like this very recently where I'm looking at my younger self, and, I'm hugging them and healing them, right? And that is so important to have, like, on a spiritual journey. But then at the end of that, he has this moment where he's looking at Naruto, and he's in the darkness, but Naruto's in the light across from him in this, Ninshu plane, right? And Naruto is accumulating all of these connections, everybody, even tailed beasts, right? All these people from different nations, right? And he's getting like sadder and sadder as he's like, oh, girl, I'm about to cry. He's getting sadder and sadder as he's witnessing this, and then finally he sees himself next to Naruto, and he realizes this entire time he was in that Ninshu plane with Naruto, he just didn't see it. He didn't see himself there. He didn't acknowledge it. He ran from it, right? Oh, how beautiful is that, girl? I'm about to cry. So all of that to say, when it zooms out and, they have, you see the zoom, their blood pulling into the unison sign, the statues, Madara and Hashirama's statues are making the unison sign, and this is bridging over the water. So we saw this at the end of the war, where Hashirama speaks to Madara, and he says, like, we were never supposed to figure everything out. We were supposed to lay the groundwork for the next generation to figure it out, and trust in them that they will, or that they will also lay enough groundwork for the generation after that, right? For, like, we can't change everything in our lifetime. So that groundwork is the bridge, right? And it's so beautiful that they really had that moment, you know, before Madara and Hashirama passed on yet again. Madara did heal because he agreed with Hashirama. He's like, I think you're right, right? Like, he gets it. He understands the futility of it, and he understands that he was used. He was used in such a visceral way. It was awful, right? So, you know, the unison sign of the statues, on top of course, the unison sign of the blood pulling into one another, that really, like, signified that the curse of Indra and Ashura is over. Also, of course, you know, in terms of the death to the obstruction of Ninshu, Naruto did kill Black Zetsu. Like, we did not see it on screen, but he did say, like, I'm not gonna let you live, girl, like, right? So on top of that, already, you know, Black Zetsu is already dead. On top of that, then we see, like I said, Madara and Hashirama had that conversation and they healed. And then, of course, like I said, the statue creating the bridge of the unison sign, and then Naruto and Sasuke on top of that. And just what a beautiful visual and what a beautiful series of events to show the healing of that, right? And then, of course, I want to go into Boruto's first mission, which, of course, parallels the Land of Waves. So, Boruto, you know, I really like the beginning of this mission where Boruto's like, you know, give me any mission and I'll clear it, piece of cake. And then Naruto comes up behind him and he's like, no mission's a piece of cake, right? But I really love that because it's like, Naruto had that exact same energy going into the Land of Waves arc, and then, you know, he faced death a lot and it was traumatizing, and he did come out of it, of course, with his ninja way, but it was not a piece of cake, right? He's so right. But it's like Boruto doesn't quite understand this yet, and it's important to notice that, like, or mention that this mission is Boruto's first mission, and the Land of Waves arc was not Naruto's first mission, but it was what I refer to, and I think the fandom refers to, as Naruto's first real mission, right? Because he's picked the weeds, he's caught the cats, he's walked the dogs, right? Like, he's done all that, but you know, of course, the Land of Waves is, like, actually out in the world as a ninja, right? Not just, like, in the village, right? But they essentially have to go and stop thieves from getting into the storehouses of this land, right? And the leader of the land, her name is Kitty, and her father had died 3 months prior, and this is when all this happened. And essentially there's a trader within the village who actually was the one who killed her father. She is honest to Konohamaru when they come that there was a change in the mission, right? They did hire shinobi, and I really love this because it's like Tazuna was not honest about this. So I really, that shows the world building of, like, you know, I can't afford this, but I'm gonna keep it a buck. Like, I'm still going to be honest. It really shows that, like I said, even in that wartime, the Leaf Village had that reputation, that trust with people. So Kitty says that they're after the deed to the bridge. So they essentially have a drawbridge, and you can only control it from one side, which is in the village, and they collect a toll for the people who use it, right? So this is their village's, like, main source of income, and the bridge was built by her father, right? So Boruto says, is that thing so important? Because he doesn't really understand. And Kitty says, of course it is. That's the bridge that my father built. I won't let them have it. So I really love the parallels here because her father is, as a village head, is very similar to Naruto as a Hokage, right? Like, he not only built a bridge physically, but, like, he built a bridge with his people. He treated everybody like family. So anyway, Kitty ends up being kidnapped, and Kitty never told her village about the threats and the attacks, so they didn't even know when, like, Konohamaru was like, yeah, you know, like, they're like, I wish you would have told us, right? The trader expected her to keep it to herself, like, actually, and this is very interesting because it's like he obstructed her path, right? So he played on her insecurity, and he played on the fact that she wanted to be like her father and handle everything alone. And oh my god, that's so manipulative, right? It's pretty evil, right? And he's doing this just for money, girl, like, right? And of course there is that lack mentality like I spoke with earlier, but this is not the case with him, because it's like he genuinely was treated like family in the village, and then he proceeded to poison the person who accepted him as family, right, just for money. And it's like he's plenty taken care of in the village, right? This is that goes beyond lack mindset, that goes beyond just doing something because you feel like you have to do it. The villagers willingly give up the deed to the bridge to Konohamaru to get her back, right, to trade it in, right? So the trader is killed by the shinobi that he hired, which, I mean, I think that kind of goes without saying, right? Konohamaru goes to get the deed, and he fights one of the shinobi, and then Boruto, Sarada, and Mitsuki retreat with Kiri, and Boruto is like, "Are you okay?" Like, and then she's like, "Yeah," and Mitsuki's like, "I don't think she's okay," because she's bleeding everywhere, and he kind of reprimands her as they're taking a break to get her bandaged. He says, "If you don't speak up, how can we tell if you're in pain?" And she says, "Forgive me, I don't want to be any more of a burden than I already am." And that is like so relatable, where it's like you just want to be useful, and you feel that your pain is a hindrance or something like that. And it's really such a shame that she's in that that mindset, that situation. But I really like that, of course, by the end of the arc, she heals, and she accepts Ninshu, right? So when Ashimaru comes to fight them, Kiri asks Team 7 to show them show her their teamwork. So they beat Ashimaru with Boruto's Boruto Stream. So Boruto Stream is essentially wind-style gale palm in your palms, to boost the speed of whoever stands in it. So Boruto and Mitsuki both used wind-style gale palm to boost Sarada's speed to punch Ashimaru. And something I really love about the Boruto anime is that at one point or another, Team 7 has rotated who is the one who gets shot with the Boruto Stream, right? So at one point, Mitsuki gets shot with the Boruto Stream. At another point, Boruto gets shot with the Boruto Stream. At another point, Sarada, this point, Sarada gets shot with the Boruto Stream, right? And I just think that's so cool, because it's like, what a... okay, for one, they all know the same jutsu, but then for two, it's like I feel like we always wanted like that real collaborative ninjutsu with Team 7 and OG. Like there was a specific opening, I don't know which Naruto Shippuden opening it was, but Sai, Sakura, and Naruto, I believe, all make these like try signs with each other, and then they have like this lightning attack. It's so cool. Anyway, that is something I always wanted, so I really love that Boruto really expands into what you can do with that collaborative ninjutsu, right? But, Kiri goes back to the village, and, she apologizes, and, she says she'll rely on them more, and she says, I'll never be like my father, and the villagers say, she acts just like he did when he was younger, and with time she'll be like him, or even greater village head. And I really love this, because Boruto struggles with this. It's like he only knows Naruto as the great man that he is today. He has not watched Naruto Shippuden, right? Where it's like, Naruto, fumbled something, he fell, he got back up. That's the point, right? He was not just like a fucking genin with like, the skills that he has now, right? Like fucking Baryon mode and shit, right? But anyway, I digress. So, she thinks, she, has that Ninshu connection built, right? That bridge built with not only Team 7, but also her village, right? So it's like, and in that case, it's like not only was, of course, the traitor obstructing the path, and the higher ninja and everything, but she was obstructing her own path, which is what I talked about before, where it's like her insecurity in herself. This is also true for Idate, right? They obstructed their own path because they just didn't believe in themselves, and then finally when they believe in themselves and they're like, I can talk about this, I can heal this, I can move past this, right? Then they truly blossom, and they unblock the one thing that really stops them from that Ninshu connection, right? So she puts a sign in front of the bridge, and the sign says Team 7 of the Hidden Leaf Rest Area. I love this. So when I first watched it, right, I didn't have that analytical brain, right? So I was like, why wasn't it called like Boruto Bridge or some shit, right? And I think that's really interesting. So the important part of the Great Naruto Bridge and why it was named after Naruto to begin with is because the bridge needed to be built, right? In Boruto, the bridge did not need to be built, so it didn't need to be named. It was already built. It's just the inheritance that was contested for, right? And this is very beautiful because it symbolizes the inheritance of Ninshu. Like with Hashirama said, like with Hagoromo said, like we just need to lay the groundwork, and then we need to trust that the generations after will inherit and will continue to build upon it. Whereas similarly, Naruto built the bridge of Ninshu connection with the world, really. Like all the villages are united and at peace. There's no more war between villages. Boruto's parallel with Kiri is very interesting because she feels she's living in the shadow of her father as a village leader, and he feels he's living in the shadow of his father as a ninja, right? Like we see so many scenes where people are making these quips at Boruto, and they're like, well, must be nice to ride the coattails or whatever the fuck, right? And it's like, if you watch the show, right, which we all have, or whatever, if you know, he puts 110% into these fucking missions, right? Like he really does learn, and he does the work, right? And it's like for a while, of course, because he didn't understand the actual reality of ninja, right? And what they have to deal with in war and stuff like that, right? Like he did have that level of ignorance and it seems like he didn't take it seriously, right? But that's the thing, is it's important to not confuse his enthusiasm to do a mission well for ignorance and brattiness, right? Because Naruto was really the same way, where he's like, I'm gonna ace this shit next time, right? Even after experiencing the Land of Waves, he was still excited to get new missions where he can prove himself, right? But then, of course, when you're in the moment, right? When you're in the actual do or die moment, it's a little different. And Boruto and Naruto, I feel like both handled both the same way, really. The only difference in Boruto, of course, is that Naruto lived a war. Like, he not only lived a war, but he did the heavy lifting in said war. Like, the heavy lifting. Like, he was on battlefields fucking mile, whatever the fuck out, right? Just so far away from his original body, just doing shit that people can't do, like using thousands of shadow clones or whatever the fuck with all these big giant Rasengans, and that ain't even his real body, right? I also want to mention a few honorable mentions. So in Shippuden episode 253, Toby, quote unquote, right, kills Konan. As he kills Konan, he says, "You'll be seeing Nagato soon. You can discuss how you both fell for Naruto's foolish dreams. There's no such thing as peace. There's no such thing as hope. Nagato only believed in Naruto to find solace in his pathetic existence." I really love this because obviously we all know Toby, came around. Like he was, he accepted the path of Ninshu through Naruto as well, right? He's really going to be rolling up in the afterlife. Like, hey, how y'all doing? But Konan has this flashback of Yahiko saying, quote, "But Nagato is someone who will be the bridge that leads to peace. My role is to make that happen. I am the pillar that will support the bridge." And then Nagato says, quote, "It's Yahiko that will be the bridge to peace. That is, his will itself will be." The current scene shows Toby looking at the sky, wondering why the endless downpour stopped, right? It's the village hidden in the rain. There's always that perpetual rain. And, as Konan, before she has that flashback, she looks up at the rain clouds parting to reveal the blue sky. And she says, quote, "Yahiko, Nagato, their will shall not be extinguished. I too believe in Naruto, and it's his turn now. Naruto will be the bridge to peace, and I vow right now that I shall be the pillar that supports him." And then a rainbow forms. Girl, I'm about to cry. "I am expendable. I am only a mere flower, but I'll take you with me." By the way, holy fucking shit. I love Konan. Like, she really is, like, the goat. So, Toby's holding Konan by her collar, and, he said, "You call me darkness. Well, then I shall make you wilt and cause this sparkling rainbow bridge of yours to fade in the darkness as well." I really love that, the rainbow bridge, right? Like, the bridge of light, right? The bridge of peace, like she said. Like, that beautiful moment where it's like, he really was a bridge of peace that changed the world, girl. Like, and then, we go back to what Tazuna said, where he's like, "I'm going to make a bridge that will change our world." It's like, oh, how beautiful, girl, with the Ninshu and everything. So another honorable mention that I want to talk about in regards to the bridge and the narrative vehicle for Ninshu is there. After the pain fight, there's a series of anime canon episodes, and I think like 3 episodes or something like that, maybe 2, are called like Iruka's Ordeal, right? It's Iruka's backstory. I mentioned it earlier, with Naruto, like OG, right? Like, when they first really had that bond. And, he was given bad advice by a teacher that didn't like Naruto. And Iruka, of course, did not know how to, like, quote unquote, handle Naruto, right? Because it's like, he has that PTSD from the Nine Tails attack. And he even said before, like, I know that it was not Naruto that did that, but I still feel these feelings when I look at him, right? And I don't want to. So he actually feels like he's not the best fit for Naruto as a teacher. And he gets advice from another teacher, and the teacher, just told him to ignore Naruto, which is horrible, horrible advice. So then the infamous, really, scene with the mask happens, where the shop owner throws a mask at Naruto and just treats him like subhuman, and then everyone's gathering around and looking down on him. It shows that Shikamaru and Choji were actually there, and they were like kind of wondering like, what the fuck. So at that point, Shikamaru goes to talk to his dad, and he's like, why does everyone treat that kid like that? Shikaku really had the best response here, where he's like, well, what do you think about it, right? Like, what I say doesn't matter in that sense, especially since everybody in Naruto's class, right, besides Sakura, they are the child of the leader of their clan. So since Shikaku is the leader of the clan, he can't tell, like, he is, not speaking about the nine-tailed fox being sealed within inside Naruto was a village rule. A lot of people did break that rule, but leaders are kind of course, upheld to a different standard. And not only that, but they have their own sense of integrity to where they wouldn't even talk about that shit anyway, right? So Shikaku didn't say that for that, but also because, of course, he wants Shikamaru to make his own, mind up. What do you think of him? Well, I think he's a little annoying, but, he's funny, right? He's a good guy. And, Shikaku says, I think you should treat him how you want to treat him, right? So, after witnessing that, Choji and Shikamaru are on a bridge over the village, like, connecting 2 different buildings, right? Across the street. And they're witnessing these kids trick Naruto and telling him, there's some ninja fighting in the back hills and stuff like that, and if you can bring like one of their possessions to us, we can be, we'll be your friend. So Iruka asks where Naruto is, and Shikamaru tells the truth, and the kid's like, you're snitch or whatever, and Shikamaru says, your pranks have gotten annoying and so have you. Period. So when Shikamaru acknowledged how Naruto was treated, and he asked his dad, and he decided for himself his path, what he was going to embody, right? Then the bridge showed up. Then there was the time to be honest, and he was, right? That was the beginning of his own path of integrity, right? And of course, since I mentioned it, I do feel like it's worth talking about the rest of the arc. So, Iruka goes to retrieve Naruto from the woods. By the way, keep in mind, Iruka's a chunin. Like, he really is not that strong in terms of, like, he can't fight when he's outnumbered. So it really shows how much he cares about Naruto to do this, really. But, he tells him to go back to the academy. It's dangerous. Like, Naruto says, you only act like a teacher when it's convenient for you. You don't get it. You don't know what I go through every day, and none of that is going to change just because I go back to school. I'm always alone. I'm always left out. Look, don't you see nobody wants me around? Nobody cares. But this time it will be different. If I bring something back from out here, then I'm finally going to have some friends who will accept me. If I do that, then I won't be alone anymore, and I won't feel like an outsider anymore. Completely heartbreaking, obviously, and at the end of this, when Kakashi comes to save them and rescue them and whatever. After that, by the swing, Iruka, yells at Naruto, right? Which he usually up until this point he kind of ignored him, right? And Naruto's surprised, and he's like, I didn't think you'd yell at me, right? And Iruka laughed, and he's like, I'm gonna, starting now, I'm gonna be honest with myself, right? And he asks Naruto if he has the will of fire, right? Which is the same thing, like I said earlier, Hiruzen asked Iruka when he was younger, and Iruka regained the spark in his eye. And earlier within this arc, these set of episodes, Kakashi said, like, when Iruka asked to be a teacher, he had a spark in his eye, and Kakashi's like, you don't have that right now. And he's like, and he even said, like, I think you'd be the best person. I think you're the best person to connect with Naruto. But, Iruka, right, he was projecting. He thought he wouldn't be the best because, his PTSD, and he looks at Naruto and, he has that trauma come back. He has those flashbacks come back, and he doesn't want to attribute the tragedy and the existence of the nine-tailed fox, right? He doesn't want to attribute that to Naruto. He wants to treat him like a human, but he doesn't feel like he can. But that's the point, right? That's the point, is that he sees Naruto in that way, and he doesn't truly understand that people don't see Naruto in that way, right? It's like, not only do they want to attribute that to him, but they're happy to do so, right? So Iruka truly was the best person for this. But, Iruka, asks him, and Naruto's like, what's the will of fire? And he's like, it's a strong will to do whatever it takes to protect the Leaf Village no matter what. If you have it, then you can become strong as the Lord Hokage. Naruto says, the Hokage? Is he really as strong as they say? And then Iruka says, he is, but he's got more than just strength. Lord Hokage has the respect of everyone in the village because he's a great leader. The fourth Hokage was a hero who protected the village from the nine-tailed fox. Naruto says, a hero? That's it then. I'm going to become an even stronger Hokage than the fourth Hokage. And then everyone in the village will have to acknowledge how great I am. And Iruka carves a line in the tree, the tree with the swing. And he says by the time he's that tall, he might be able to become the Hokage. And then it cuts to Iruka in the present time, facing this tree, facing this swing. And he touches the mark, and he envisions Naruto in front of it. And he says, Naruto, I believe you really might become Hokage one day. Which he does, girl, which he does. Oh, how beautiful. And then, of course, the last honorable mention that I would like to mention is that when Jiraiya was first shown in the anime, whatever, he was shown across the bridge from where Naruto was training. And of course, I think that that's so significant, because it's like that really signifies that it's like, I've always been here, you just haven't seen me. I've always been here. And we've always had that connection, because they have. Because as Minato, is dying, and, he seals half of the nine-tailed fox into Naruto. He sends the frog with the key to Jiraiya. Like, Jiraiya was probably, you know, one of the first to truly, like, get the word besides the people who were at the scene, right? Okay, he received that shit immediately, right? And of course, he already knew he was the godfather of Naruto, right? He would be the godfather. And then, of course, at that point, when he receives that key, he knows that he has to teach that kid, right? Like, because, of course, a huge part of Jiraiya's prophecy is that, you know, he takes students, he takes these apprentices, and he has that prophecy to fulfill, right? It's really interesting because it finds me wondering if Jiraiya is maybe the reincarnation of Hagoromo, because, you know, or at the very least, they are paralleled, because they both have the destiny, right? The fate, the prophecy to be a teacher. One last thing before I end off this video, I want to quote the song that I mentioned before, which is Changes by Tupac. I feel like this quote is very relevant to Indra and Ashra. So he says, "I got love for my brother, but we can never go nowhere unless we share with each other. We gotta start making changes. Learn to see me as a brother instead of two distant strangers. And that's how it's supposed to be. How can the devil take a brother if he's close to me? I'd love to go back to when we played as kids, but things change, and that's the way it is." I really love this because obviously this correlates to, you know, Indra and Ashra, and the devil in that case would be Black Zetsu, right? The obstruction of the path, the obstruction of Ninshu, right? If we have this connection, you know, we cannot lose the path. We cannot, disconnect, right? And I also think that's very interesting because, of course, it plays into omnipotence in obvious ways. And then the, I'd love to go back to when we played as kids, but things change and that's the way it is. Oh my god. Something I really love about Naruto is the portrayal of the inner child consistently. How underneath it all, we are always, you know, children, right? We are all children. And that's really why Danzo's death touches me so much. That was literally what he sees in the afterlife, is him joining Hiruzen as kids and them playing in the creek, right? And then them running and looking over the Leaf Village that they grew up in. You know, it's important to be aware of where you stand and introspect when you see somebody creating division, especially somebody who could benefit from it, right? The Black Zetsus, the Gatos, the Danzos of the world, right? If you got this far, I am genuinely shook. Genuinely, because I am a yapper. If there's one thing about me, I will yap and I will not shut the fuck up, right? So anyway, thank you. Catch you on the flip side.